The first thing Tyrion Lannister heard was water, a patient drip that counted out the seconds like a jailer. The second was a footstep that did not belong to a jailer, too careful, too human. In the darkness beneath the Red Keep, sound had a way of arriving before sense, like a messenger who lost the letter but kept the seal. A key rasped in iron. The cell door groaned. A torch flared, throwing a thin orange knife across the straw and the manacles on Tyrion Lannister's wrists. For a heartbeat, Tyrion Lannister thought it was his father come down himself, come to look at the monster the realm had decided he was. Tyrion Lannister's mind always went first to cruelty. It had learned the habit young. But it was Jaime Lannister who stepped into the light. Jaime Lannister looked like a man who had been struck and had not yet decided whether to fall. His jaw was unshaven, his hair darker with sweat, and his white cloak, once clean as a fresh letter, was smeared at the hem with soot and something that might have been wine. His golden hand caught the torchlight and threw it back as a hard glitter, as if even metal could feel accusation. Jaime Lannister, Tyrion Lannister said, and the name came out dry. Jaime Lannister's eyes flicked over Tyrion Lannister's face, too quick to linger. "Can you walk?" Tyrion Lannister laughed because the question was almost kind, and kindness in a place like this felt like a trap. "I've been walking my whole life," Tyrion Lannister said. "Most men just don't notice because my legs are short." A soft sound behind Jaime Lannister. Tyrion Lannister twisted his head and saw Varys, pale as a candle left too long in the heat. The eunuch's slippers made no noise on the wet stone. "Time is a knife," Varys murmured, voice gentle, eyes not. "And knives are sharpest at the throat." Jaime Lannister ignored Varys as if the spider were only a draft. He crouched, awkward with the golden hand, and found the lock on Tyrion Lannister's manacles. The key turned. Metal gave way. Tyrion Lannister's wrists were suddenly light, and the ache in them was so bright it almost became pain. "You came," Tyrion Lannister said, and heard in his own voice the childish, ridiculous hope he had buried when he was 6. Jaime Lannister did not answer that. Jaime Lannister stood. "We don't go through the city," Jaime Lannister said. "We go through here. Varys knows the ways." Varys inclined his head, as if introducing the tunnels like a host showing guests to their rooms. "I know a great many things," Varys said, "but what matters tonight is that I know how to leave." Tyrion Lannister rubbed his wrists, flexing fingers that had forgotten they belonged to him. "And where do we leave to?" Tyrion Lannister asked. "To Essos? To some warm bed where I can drink myself into a stupor until the world forgets I exist." Jaime Lannister's mouth twitched, but it wasn't quite a smile. "Not Essos." Tyrion Lannister watched Jaime Lannister's face, trying to read it. There were lines there Tyrion Lannister did not remember. "Then where?" Tyrion Lannister said. Jaime Lannister's eyes dropped, just for a moment, to the torch. "The wall," Jaime Lannister said. For a heartbeat, the drip of water sounded loud enough to be applause. Tyrion Lannister blinked. "The wall," Tyrion Lannister repeated, tasting the words. "Exile, snow, black wool, a place where men went to stop being men with names." Varys made a little sound, almost like a sigh. "An inventive solution," Varys said, "though I had rather imagined." "Imagine less," Jaime Lannister cut in, and the sharpness in his voice surprised even him. He steadied it. "The wall is the end of the world. It's also outside Cersei Lannister's reach. Outside my father's reach." Tyrion Lannister stared at Jaime Lannister, and the tunnel's torchlight made the older brother's face look half-carved, half-haunted. "Tywin Lannister is dead," Tyrion Lannister said softly, and watched the words strike. "You know that." Jaime Lannister's throat worked. "I know." Tyrion Lannister thought of Tywin Lannister's corpse above, of the stink that would cling to those chambers for days, of the certainty that Cersei Lannister would turn that death into a weapon and swing it at anyone within reach. Tyrion Lannister's own hands felt cleaner down here than they had in years, which was its own kind of joke. "The wall," Tyrion Lannister said again, and this time the laughter that came was dark and real. Jaime Lannister, you've always had a talent for choosing impossible battles. Jaime Lannister's eyes met Tyrion Lannister's. We don't have time for what? For truth. Tyrion Lannister's smile was thin. Jaime Lannister, you've come to free a condemned man. Perhaps indulge him in one last question. Why? Jaime Lannister's golden fingers curled, a reflex without sensation. Because I'm tired, Jaime Lannister said, and it sounded like a confession. Because the city is a pit and I'm done pretending it's a throne. Because if Cersei Lannister finds out, Tyrion Lannister finished, she'll tear out your heart and wear it like a jewel. Jaime Lannister flinched, as if the words had weight. Varys coughed delicately into his sleeve, a man politely excusing himself from a family's private ruin. Tyrion Lannister took a breath. Above them, the Red Keep was full of rooms where Tyrion Lannister had been laughed at, pitted, loathed, and used. The idea of leaving it behind, of leaving all of it behind, felt like standing on the edge of a cliff and realizing the wind might be kinder than the ground. All right, Tyrion Lannister said. Take me to your frozen end of the world. Jaime Lannister moved as if the agreement had been a rope thrown to him across deep water. He turned, and Tyrion Lannister followed, careful on uneven stone. Varys went first, torch held high, guiding them through a vein of the castle that no lord ever saw. As they walked, Tyrion Lannister noticed something strange. Jaime Lannister's white cloak dragging behind him, snagging on stones. The cloak looked less like honor now than like a shroud. At a junction where the tunnel forked, Jaime Lannister stopped. He took the clasp at his throat between flesh and gold and unfastened it. The white cloth slid from his shoulders and pooled on the wet stone like fallen snow. Tyrion Lannister stared. Jaime Lannister, Tyrion Lannister said, and the words were suddenly sharp. What are you doing? Jaime Lannister did not look back. Leaving, Jaime Lannister said. You can't, Tyrion Lannister said. You're a knight of the Kingsguard, Jaime Lannister said. A sworn shield. A pretty story. Jaime Lannister's voice went flat. Stories don't keep you warm. Varys's eyes glittered in the torchlight. A very bold choice, Varys said, like a man admiring a dangerous jewel. Jaime Lannister's shoulders rose and fell once. If I keep the cloak, Jaime Lannister said, I keep the lie. If I keep the lie, I keep Cersei Lannister. Tyrion Lannister should have laughed. Tyrion Lannister should have mocked. But something in Jaime Lannister's posture, something beaten and stubborn, made Tyrion Lannister swallow the jest. They walked on, leaving the white cloak behind like a ghost that would never find its body. The tunnel ended not with a gate but with a stink. Brackish water and old rot. The city's filth poured into the river and forgotten. A grate had been loosened, just enough to slip through one at a time. Varys pushed first, shoulders fitting where no man should. Jaime Lannister followed with a grunt, golden hand scraping iron. Tyrion Lannister went last, and for one terrifying moment the world narrowed to cold metal and stone pressing his ribs, as if the Red Keep meant to swallow him back. Then he was through, and Blackwater Bay lay before them under a sky bruised with the last hours of night. A small boat waited, a fisherman's skiff with a single oar and a tarred sail folded like a sleeping bat. The man holding it steady was faceless in the fog, hood up, hands calloused. He did not greet them. He did not ask names. He only nodded once, as if he had been paid to recognize strangers. Varys produced a bundle from beneath his cloak. Rough wool, a travel-stained cap, a brown cloak without sigil. I cannot offer you much, Varys said. Only a chance to become unimportant. Jaime Lannister took the bundle and threw it to Tyrion Lannister. Tyrion Lannister caught it and felt the scratch of cheap cloth. He looked from the bundle to Varys. You're letting us go, Tyrion Lannister said. That seems unwise. Varys's smile was small. Wisdom is a word men use when they want to hide desire, Varys said. Let us say I desire certain outcomes. Jaime Lannister's eyes sharpened. You're staying, Jaime Lannister said. accusation dressed as observation. I must, Varys said. There is work to do, if the realm is to have any chance at all. Varys stopped himself, as if even tunnels were listening. If you intend the wall, you must be north before the city wakes. Before grief becomes rage and rage becomes search. Tyrion Lannister stripped off his prison rags and pulled on the wool. The cap smelled of smoke and onions. It was the scent of small folk, the scent of being ignored. Tyrion Lannister found, to his surprise, that he liked it. Jaime Lannister did not change. Jaime Lannister stood in his fine clothes, Lannister cuts and lion thread, as if daring the world to say his name. Tyrion Lannister watched him, brow furrowing. You'll be seen, Tyrion Lannister said. You'll be recognized. Jaime Lannister's mouth tightened. I've been recognized all my life, Jaime Lannister said. It never saved me. Varys stepped close, lowering his voice. Jaime Lannister, Varys said. You cannot take the Kingsroad in Lannister silk. Even the crows would gossip. I have arranged a different path. Jaime Lannister turned his head, just enough to show one ear. Speak. A cart, Varys said. Hay and onions. It leaves before dawn for Rosby, then Duskendale. From there, a ship can carry you up the coast. The sea is faster than roads and less inquisitive. Tyrion Lannister let out a breath. The sea meant fewer checkpoints. The sea meant fewer eyes measuring the width of his shoulders and thinking of reward money. And if we refuse? Jaime Lannister said. Varys' smile faded. Then you die, Varys said plainly. Perhaps today, perhaps tomorrow. But you die. Tyrion Lannister studied Varys, then really studied him. Varys had always been soft in voice and manner, but the softness had never been weakness. It was a blanket thrown over steel. You're afraid, Tyrion Lannister said. Varys' eyes flicked to Tyrion Lannister. I am prudent, Varys said. Afraid, Tyrion Lannister repeated, savoring it. Good. Fear is honest. The fisherman shifted, impatient. Jaime Lannister stepped toward the boat, then stopped. Jaime Lannister looked at Varys, the way a man looks at a road fork that will decide the rest of his life. You freed me, Jaime Lannister said, voice low. It was the closest Jaime Lannister came to thanks. I opened a door, Varys said. You chose to walk through with him. Jaime Lannister's golden hand flexed. If Cersei Lannister... Varys lifted a finger. Cersei Lannister will believe whatever pain tells her to believe, Varys said. But pain can be directed. I will do what I can. Tyrion Lannister barked a laugh. You will do what serves you. Varys' eyes held Tyrion Lannister's, unblinking. Yes, Varys said. And sometimes, Tyrion Lannister, what serves me also serves the realm. Jaime Lannister climbed into the skiff with the stiffness of a man who had forgotten how to be small. Tyrion Lannister followed, settling carefully. The fisherman shoved off. Cold water slapped the hull. The fog swallowed the shore as if the city were a bad dream. For a few strokes of the oar, neither brother spoke. In the silence, Tyrion Lannister heard distant bells begin to toll, faint through fog. The sound made his stomach twist. Bells meant death. Bells meant crowds. Bells meant stories being written without his consent. Jaime Lannister stared at the city's dim glow. We're not going back, Jaime Lannister said, voice rough. Tyrion Lannister leaned back, feeling the boat's smallness beneath him. No, Tyrion Lannister said. We're going forward, into the snow, because your conscience decided to grow teeth. Jaime Lannister's eyes remained on the fog. You can still leave, Jaime Lannister said. At Duskendale, find some ship to Pentos, disappear, and miss the chance to freeze to death with my beloved brother? Tyrion Lannister said. Tyrion Lannister's smile faded. No. If the world insists I'm a monster, perhaps I should go where the monsters are said to live. The boat slid toward a quieter stretch of shore where a small inlet waited like a mouth. A low cart stood there, piled with hay, 2 oxen blowing steam. A driver in a patched cloak stared at the water as if it offended him. Varys was gone, already erased from the moment. Jaime Lannister stepped out first, boots sinking into mud. Tyrion Lannister followed, slipping once and catching himself with a curse. Jaime Lannister's golden hand reached out, not touching, hovering, uncertain. Tyrion Lannister straightened. "Don't start," Tyrion Lannister said softly. Jaime Lannister pulled his hand back as if it had been burned. The driver jerked his chin toward the hay. Jaime Lannister climbed in without hesitation, sinking among the stalks. Tyrion Lannister hesitated, looking back once at the fog that hid King's Landing. Somewhere within that fog, Cersei Lannister would soon wake to grief and fury, and the hunt would begin. Tyrion Lannister climbed into the hay and let the scratchy stalks cover him like a poor man's shroud. The cart smelled of onions and animal sweat, and the hay poked at Tyrion Lannister's cheeks as if trying to make sure he was awake for his own escape. The road's jolts drove the hay into Tyrion Lannister's ribs. Jaime Lannister lay beside him, body rigid, eyes open. The older brother had always slept like a man expecting an ambush, even in silk sheets. In hay he looked almost natural. Tyrion Lannister shifted, and the hay whispered loud in the quiet. Jaime Lannister's gaze snapped to Tyrion Lannister's face. "Still alive," Tyrion Lannister mouthed. Jaime Lannister did not smile. Jaime Lannister's jaw worked once, as if grinding down words. Above them, the driver clucked at the oxen. The cart creaked onward. Through a thin slit between hay and plank, Tyrion Lannister saw morning. The sky was pale and sickly, the kind that made men look like ghosts. The road was busy. Carts carrying grain, wagons with barrels, a line of soldiers marching south with their spears on their shoulders and their faces set in the weary calm of men who had stopped asking why. "Whose men?" Tyrion Lannister whispered. Jaime Lannister shifted just enough to see. "Crown," Jaime Lannister mouthed back. "Or what's left of it." Tyrion Lannister felt something like bitter amusement. The crown had always been a hat passed between hands, more blood than gold. Now, with Tywin Lannister dead, the hands would tighten. The cart slowed at Rosby. Tyrion Lannister knew Rosby by rumor. A lordling seat, close enough to King's Landing to be infected by its politics, small enough to be eaten. A wooden signpost flashed by, rain darkened, letters warped. The driver pulled up behind other carts waiting at a checkpoint. Tyrion Lannister's heart found a new rhythm, hard and fast. Jaime Lannister's hand, his real hand, closed briefly over Tyrion Lannister's sleeve, a pressure like a warning. "Stay still. Breathe less." Boots crunched near the cart. Voices. One man complaining about a missing shipment. Another laughing about who would sit the hand's chair now. Tywin Lannister's chair. Tyrion Lannister's stomach tightened. A spear but struck the cart side. Testing. "Ice sheathed." Tyrion Lannister held his breath until his lungs burned. "What's this?" a guard said. "Onions," the driver replied. "For the garrison at Duskendale." "Onions," the guard scoffed. "You'd think we were fighting a war with stew." "We are," another voice said, older, colder. "All wars end in stew." Tyrion Lannister recognized that tone. A man who had seen enough to stop believing in glory. The spear but struck again, harder. "I jumped." "Open it," the older voice ordered. Jaime Lannister's body went very still. Tyrion Lannister's fingers tightened around the silver coin he had taken from Varys's bundle. Felt suddenly stupid, a child's offering to a dragon. The cart's rear plank creaked. Light stabbed in. For a heartbeat, Tyrion Lannister saw a man's face framed by the gap. Stubbled jaw, narrow eyes, the board. Cruelty of someone given small authority. The guard poked at the hay with his spear. The point grazed Tyrion Lannister's boot. Tyrion Lannister did not move. "Just onions," the driver repeated, too quickly. The guard's spear paused. The man's eyes narrowed, suspicious now not of onions but of fear. Jaime Lannister's golden hand moved, slow, deliberate, toward the gap, fingers holding a small purse. "Sire," Jaime Lannister said. voice pitched low and hoarse like a commoner's. "Onions are all we have. Let us pass." The guard stared at the gold. His suspicion wrestled with his hunger. In the end, hunger won, as it usually did. He snatched the purse and weighed it, grin creeping. "Fine," the guard said. "Move along." The plank fell shut. The cart lurched forward. Tyrion Lannister exhaled. A shaky thing. Jaime Lannister's shoulders loosened a fraction. "You've always been good at buying men," Tyrion Lannister whispered. Jaime Lannister's eyes stayed on the slit of light. "It's the only talent father praised," Jaime Lannister said. They rode on. Villages passed, some with smoke rising from chimneys, some with only blackened beams and half-collapsed roofs, as if a giant hand had crushed them. Tyrion Lannister saw a woman in a ditch cradling a bundle that did not move. A boy with hollow cheeks watched the carts pass with the flat stare of someone who expected nothing. Tyrion Lannister swallowed. "This is our work," Tyrion Lannister whispered, and the words tasted like ash. "House Lannister's gold. House Lannister's pride." Jaime Lannister's jaw tightened. "It's the realm's work," Jaime Lannister said. "Everyone has dirty hands." "Not everyone pretends they're clean," Tyrion Lannister said. Jaime Lannister's eyes flicked to Tyrion Lannister, sharp as a drawn blade. "Do you want to talk about clean hands?" Jaime Lannister asked, and Tyrion Lannister felt the question like a bruise. Tyrion Lannister turned his face into the hay to hide his expression. The cart rumbled on, toward Duskendale, toward the sea, toward the wall, toward a place where oaths were supposed to mean what they said. Behind them, the bells of King's Landing rang on, small and distant, like a memory refusing to die. By noon, the cart had become too dangerous. The driver stopped at a roadside inn with a yard of mud and a sagging stable and muttered that he'd go no farther with ghosts in his hay. Jaime Lannister did not argue. Jaime Lannister paid him with a coin and a look that made the man back away as if he'd seen the lion beneath the wool. Inside the inn, the air smelled of wet cloaks and sour ale. A hearth burned low, more smoke than warmth. Tyrion Lannister sat near the fire, hunched, cap pulled down, trying to make himself small in a room that had no reason to notice him. Jaime Lannister stood by the window, watching the road like a man expecting a siege. Tyrion Lannister's eyes roamed the room. Two men played at dice with hands that shook. A woman soothed a crying child with the soft rhythm of someone practiced at hunger. In the far corner, a hedge knight with a dented helm drank quietly, face shadowed. Above the hearth, a crude sheet of parchment had been nailed to a beam. Tyrion Lannister's stomach twisted as he recognized the ugly, exaggerated sketch. A dwarf with a twisted face, a goblet in one hand and a dagger in the other. The words beneath were smeared, but the meaning was clear enough. Reward, murderer, regicide. Tyrion Lannister lifted his cup and drank, as if the ale could wash away ink. Jaime Lannister's voice came from the window, low. "They're searching." Tyrion Lannister did not look up. "They would," Tyrion Lannister said. "Cersei Lannister will search every pigsty from here to the arbor. She'll set hounds on rats. She'll tear apart the world and call it justice." Jaime Lannister's reflection in the window glass looked older than Tyrion Lannister remembered. "She'll assume Varys did it," Jaime Lannister said. "She'll assume everyone did it," Tyrion Lannister replied. "That's the mercy of being Cersei Lannister. The world is always guilty." A shadow fell across Tyrion Lannister's table. The innkeeper stood there, a broad man with hands like hams and eyes that had learned not to see too much. He set down a bowl of thin stew. "Food," the innkeeper said. "2 stags." Jaime Lannister came over, placed the coins down, then held the innkeeper's gaze a moment too long. "We're headed to Duskendale," Jaime Lannister said. "We need horses." The innkeeper's eyes flicked to Jaime Lannister's golden hand, just visible beneath the sleeve. Something like recognition stirred, then fear smothered it. "Horses ain't cheap," the innkeeper said, voice cautious. "Neither is silence," Jaime Lannister said. The innkeeper swallowed. "I don't know nothing," the innkeeper said quickly. "I don't want to know." "Good," Jaime Lannister said. Keep it that way." The innkeeper hurried off. Tyrion Lannister stirred his stew. It was mostly water with floating scraps of onion. He almost laughed at the irony. "Onions," Tyrion Lannister said softly, "will haunt the realm as onion sellers." Jaime Lannister sat opposite, stiff. "Eat," Jaime Lannister said. Tyrion Lannister ate. Hunger had a way of making pride feel decorative. Outside, hoofs clopped. Voices rose, Lannister soldiers by the sound. Tyrion Lannister's spoon paused halfway to his mouth. Jaime Lannister's gaze sharpened. Jaime Lannister stood. "Stay," Jaime Lannister said. Tyrion Lannister watched Jaime Lannister cross the room to the door, moving with the controlled economy of a man who had once been the quickest blade in the realm. Tyrion Lannister felt something strange then. Not trust. Tyrion Lannister had learned to ration that, but a grim curiosity. What would Jaime Lannister do now without the armor of rank? Without the surety of two hands? The door opened. Cold air swept in. 3 soldiers stood in the yard, red cloaks dark with mud. A sergeant with a scarred cheek held a parchment, another dwarf sketch. The sergeant's eyes swept the inn. "By order of the Queen Regent," the sergeant called, voice practiced, "we are to search for." Jaime Lannister stepped into the doorway, blocking their view with his body. Jaime Lannister's cloak was plain now, but Jaime Lannister still carried himself like a man who did not yield ground. "We have no regicides here," Jaime Lannister said, voice roughened, not quite his own. The sergeant's eyes narrowed. "And who are you to say?" the sergeant demanded. "A man trying to get to Duskendale before nightfall," Jaime Lannister said. Jaime Lannister lifted his left sleeve just enough to show the glint of gold. Not fully, not a declaration, a warning. The sergeant's expression flickered. Greed, fear, uncertainty. Gold meant power. Gold also meant consequences. "You?" the sergeant said slowly, and his eyes tried to fit Jaime Lannister's face to rumor. "You look." Jaime Lannister stepped forward, closing distance with the calm of a predator. "You've never seen me," Jaime Lannister said softly. "You've seen men who told stories about me. Stories don't pay your wages. Stories don't keep you alive." The sergeant swallowed. One of the younger soldiers shifted, hand on sword, eager. Jaime Lannister's gaze snapped to the young man and held him pinned in place. Tyrion Lannister watched from the table, breath held, fingers tightening around his spoon like it was a knife. The room had gone quiet. Even the dice players had stopped. The sergeant's pride wrestled with sense. Sense won, but it did not do so politely. "We'll search anyway," the sergeant said, and his voice tried to sound brave. Jaime Lannister nodded once, as if granting permission. Then Jaime Lannister's right hand moved, fast, and seized the sergeant's wrist. The golden hand came up and struck the sergeant's forearm with a hard metallic crack. The parchment fell into the mud. The sergeant yelped. Jaime Lannister twisted, turned the man's arm, and leaned close. "Leave," Jaime Lannister said, voice like frost, "or I'll take your hand for that parchment." The sergeant stared at Jaime Lannister's face, and something in him broke. Not bone, but courage. The sergeant jerked back, clutching his arm, and spat into the mud as if to mark his retreat. "Fine," the sergeant snarled. "Not worth the trouble." The soldiers backed away. Hooves clopped as they mounted and rode off. Jaime Lannister stood in the doorway for a moment longer, watching them go, shoulders tight. Then Jaime Lannister came back inside and closed the door. Tyrion Lannister exhaled slowly. "That," Tyrion Lannister said, voice light with forced humor, "was either very clever or very stupid." Jaime Lannister sat down, face pale. "It was necessary," Jaime Lannister said. Tyrion Lannister picked up the spoon again, hand shaking slightly. "Necessary," Tyrion Lannister echoed. "That word is doing a great deal of work lately." Jaime Lannister's gaze dropped to the table. "Eat," Jaime Lannister said again, but this time it sounded less like an order and more like a plea. Tyrion Lannister ate, and the stew tasted of onion and fear. Duskendale's harbor was a mouth full of teeth. Piers jutting like broken ribs into gray water, gulls screaming overhead, sailors shouting at ropes as if shouting could make knots obey. The air tasted of salt and tar. Tyrion Lannister felt the sea's presence like a promise and a threat. Water could carry a man away. Water could also swallow him without caring what name he had worn. Jaime Lannister moved with purpose through the docks, head lowered, cloak pulled up. Jaime Lannister did not look like a lord here. Jaime Lannister looked like a soldier who'd lost his unit and was too stubborn to admit it. They had horses from the innkeeper, thin beasts, ribs visible but fast enough. Jaime Lannister had ridden one-handed with grim determination, golden hand locked on the reins as if it could feel them. Tyrion Lannister had ridden with his body aching, but the pain kept him awake, and awake was alive. Now they stood near a ship that looked like it had been built from every mistake a carpenter ever made and then patched back together in stubbornness. The sail was furled, stained brown. Its captain was a salt-streaked man with a beard like a net. Jaime Lannister spoke first. "White Harbor," Jaime Lannister said. The captain spat. "White Harbor in winter," the captain said. "If storms don't take you, the Manderleys might. That'll be 10 dragons." Jaime Lannister's eyes narrowed. 5, Jaime Lannister said. The captain laughed. 5 won't buy my wife's forgiveness, the captain said. 10. Tyrion Lannister stepped in, voice smooth. 7, Tyrion Lannister said. And you get the honor of having carried 2 men who will be very grateful they arrived alive. The captain eyed Tyrion Lannister, taking in the cap, the plain cloak, the way Tyrion Lannister's eyes did not flinch. 8, the captain said. And I don't want to know your names. Perfect, Tyrion Lannister said. Names are overrated. Jaime Lannister counted coins into the captain's hand. The captain weighed them, then jerked his chin toward the gangplank. Board, the captain said, before the patrol comes back. Patrol? Tyrion Lannister asked, though he already knew the answer. The captain shrugged. Crown men, the captain said. Or Lannister men. Hard to tell these days. They've been sniffing around for some dwarf murderer. Tyrion Lannister's smile twitched. How fashionable, Tyrion Lannister said. They boarded. The ship's deck was slick with spray. Sailors glanced at them and looked away quickly, uninterested in trouble. Trouble, Tyrion Lannister had learned, always announced itself with confidence. They were trying very hard to look like men who did not matter. Below deck, the captain shoved them into a cramped cabin that smelled of old fish and damp wood. 2 bunks, a small shuttered porthole, a bucket in the corner that had seen too much. It's not a lord's chamber, the captain said, as if daring them to complain. It's a palace, Tyrion Lannister said, and meant. A palace that moved away from King's Landing. The captain left. The door shut. Jaime Lannister stood in the cabin for a moment as if unsure where to place his body. Then Jaime Lannister sat heavily on one bunk and stared at his golden hand. Tyrion Lannister sat opposite, stretching sore legs. For a long moment they listened to the ship's noises. Ropes creaking, sailors shouting, the slap of water against hull. The sea was already tugging at them, impatient. Jaime Lannister broke the silence. We'll need new names, Jaime Lannister said. Tyrion Lannister leaned back. You can be Ser Onion, Tyrion Lannister said. I'll be his smaller onion. Jaime Lannister's mouth tightened. This isn't a jest. Everything is a jest, Tyrion Lannister said softly. The only question is whether we're laughing or bleeding. Jaime Lannister looked up then, and something raw showed through the control. You shouldn't have to bleed for me, Jaime Lannister said. Tyrion Lannister blinked. The words did not fit Jaime Lannister easily, like armor on the wrong man. I've been bleeding for House Lannister since I was born, Tyrion Lannister said. At least now I get some fresh air with it. The ship lurched as it pushed off from the pier. Tyrion Lannister felt the movement in his bones, a shift of the world beneath his feet. The harbor sounds receded. The cabin swayed. Jaime Lannister's eyes closed briefly. Tyrion Lannister watched Jaime Lannister, the brother who had once been a son in Tyrion Lannister's childhood, bright and careless and impossible. Now Jaime Lannister looked like a man walking through his own ashes. "You killed him," Jaime Lannister said, voice quiet. Tyrion Lannister did not pretend not to understand. "Yes," Tyrion Lannister said. Jaime Lannister's eyes opened, and Tyrion Lannister saw grief there. Not for Tywin Lannister alone, but for something older, something tangled. "I never thought it would end like that," Jaime Lannister said. "It didn't end," Tyrion Lannister said. "It began. Cersei Lannister will make it begin again. Every day, until she runs out of enemies or runs out of breath." Jaime Lannister's golden fingers tapped the bunk, a useless rhythm. "The wall," Jaime Lannister said, as if reminding himself the word was real. "The wall," Tyrion Lannister agreed. Tyrion Lannister's gaze slid to the shuttered porthole, to the dim strip of sea visible through cracks. "Tell me, Jaime Lannister," Tyrion Lannister said lightly, "do you think Blackwall suits you?" Jaime Lannister's laugh came out strangled, half bitter, half relieved. "I don't care what suits me," Jaime Lannister said. "I just want it to end." Tyrion Lannister listened to the ship's timbers groan, and for the first time in a long time, Tyrion Lannister wondered what it would feel like to stop being hunted by his own name. The storm came 2 nights out, fast as a thrown fist. The sea that had seemed like a road became a beast, rolling and snapping. The ship pitched and groaned, timbers complaining as if they might split out of spite. Tyrion Lannister dragged himself onto deck because the cabin had become a trap of darkness and vomit and the relentless sway that made his stomach feel like a loose thing in his belly. On deck, the rain hit him like stones. Wind cut through his cloak as if cloth were only suggestion. Jaime Lannister was already there, braced at the rail, face wet and pale in lantern light. Jaime Lannister's golden hand clamped on the slick wood, useless for feeling but not for holding. Jaime Lannister looked like he was trying to wrestle the sea into submission by sheer stubbornness. A sailor screamed an order. Another sailor stumbled, nearly swept off by a wave. Jaime Lannister lunged and caught the man by the collar with his flesh hand, hauling him back with a strength that did not belong to a one-handed man. The sailor stared at Jaime Lannister, wide-eyed, then scrambled away without thanks. Tyrion Lannister laughed, a wild sound lost to the wind. "Still saving strangers," Tyrion Lannister shouted. Jaime Lannister's head snapped toward Tyrion Lannister. "Get below," Jaime Lannister shouted back. "And miss my chance to drown?" Tyrion Lannister yelled. "I've always wanted a dramatic death. It would be nice to choose one for once." Lightning split the sky, and for an instant the sea was lit white, showing peaks like teeth. The ship plunged into a trough and rose again with a sickening lurch. Tyrion Lannister grabbed a rope and held on, fingers burning. Jaime Lannister forced his way to Tyrion Lannister, boots slipping. Jaime Lannister leaned in close so his voice could cut through the roar. "Hold!" Jaime Lannister barked. "Don't be a fool." "I've been a fool my whole life," Tyrion Lannister shouted. "It's my most consistent quality." Jaime Lannister's eyes flashed. "Not tonight," Jaime Lannister said, and there was command in it, old and undeniable. They clung to the ship as it fought the storm. The lantern swung wildly, throwing light like a drunk painter. Rain plastered Tyrion Lannister's beard to his face. He tasted salt and felt his teeth chatter. In the chaos, Tyrion Lannister's mind did what it always did when death pressed close. It reached for words. "You know," Tyrion Lannister shouted, "there are easier ways to get to the wall." Jaime Lannister did not answer immediately. Jaime Lannister was watching the sailors, measuring their panic like a battlefield. Then Jaime Lannister said, voice hoarse, "This is nothing." Tyrion Lannister stared at Jaime Lannister. "Nothing?" Tyrion Lannister barked. A wave crashed over the rail, drenching them. "This is nothing?" Jaime Lannister wiped water from his eyes with the back of his flesh hand. "I've been in worse," Jaime Lannister said. "In fire." Tyrion Lannister's laughter died. "Ah, Tyrion." And Lannister said, softer, even though the storm still screamed. Yes, fire. Another flash of lightning. In that brief light, Jaime Lannister's face looked older, carved by choices. Tyrion Lannister saw something then. Something behind Jaime Lannister's fury and exhaustion. Fear, yes, but not of drowning. Fear of the thing waiting in the quiet after the storm, when words would have to be said that had been delayed too long. "You said the wall," Tyrion Lannister shouted, leaning closer. "You said you were tired, but that isn't all." Jaime Lannister's jaw clenched. For a moment Tyrion Lannister thought Jaime Lannister would shout, would deny. But the storm seemed to strip lies away, the way rain stripped color from cloth. "I lied," Jaime Lannister said, and the words were swallowed by wind, but Tyrion Lannister caught them. Jaime Lannister's eyes were fixed on Tyrion Lannister now, fierce and unsteady. "I lied to you." Tyrion Lannister's mouth went dry despite the rain. The sea heaved beneath them, but Tyrion Lannister felt suddenly still. "About what?" Tyrion Lannister said. Jaime Lannister swallowed, throat working. "Tisha," Jaime Lannister said. The name hit Tyrion Lannister like a blow. Tyrion Lannister's grip on the rope tightened until pain sang. "Don't," Tyrion Lannister said, voice thin. Jaime Lannister's eyes did not flinch. "She wasn't," Jaime Lannister began. Then the ship pitched hard and Jaime Lannister grabbed the rail again, steadying them both. Jaime Lannister forced the words out anyway, as if pain demanded payment. "She wasn't a whore." Tyrion Lannister stared at Jaime Lannister. The storm roared, but Tyrion Lannister heard only the blood in his ears. She was... Tyrion Lannister tried, and the sentence broke. "She was what you thought," Jaime Lannister said, voice raw. "A girl, a crofter's daughter. She loved you." Lightning flashed again, and Tyrion Lannister saw Tisha in that white instant. Dark hair, shy smile, hands trembling as she touched him like he was something precious rather than shameful. Tyrion Lannister tasted bile, not from the storm now but from memory. "You told me," Tyrion Lannister said, and his voice was something broken. "You told me she was." "I told you what father said," Jaime Lannister shouted. "I was a boy and he was..." Jaime Lannister's eyes flicked away, then back. "He was Tywin Lannister." "And you were Jaime Lannister," Tyrion Lannister said, voice rising, shaking with rage that had been waiting years for a door. "His golden son, his sword, his obedient dog." Jaime Lannister flinched as if struck. Rain streamed down his face, indistinguishable from tears. "I'm sorry," Jaime Lannister said, and the apology sounded like it cost him more than the golden hand ever had. Tyrion Lannister's laugh came out harsh. "Sorry," Tyrion Lannister spat. The sea bucked. The ship groaned. "Sorry doesn't bring her back. Sorry doesn't..." Tyrion Lannister choked on the rest because the rest was screaming Indeed, there was no room for it on a deck battered by waves. Jaime Lannister reached out, flesh hand hovering near Tyrion Lannister's shoulder, then stopping. Jaime Lannister could not touch without permission now. "I know," Jaime Lannister said. "I know." Tyrion Lannister turned his face into the rain, letting it wash over him like punishment. For a moment Tyrion Lannister hated Jaime Lannister with a clean, bright hatred. Then another feeling slid beneath it, uglier, understanding. Jaime Lannister had been raised in Tywin Lannister's shadow. Jaime Lannister had learned obedience as survival. It did not excuse. It only explained. The storm raged on. Tyrion Lannister clung to the rope, shaking, and wondered if the sea might be merciful enough to decide for him. But the ship kept fighting. The sailors kept shouting. Jaime Lannister kept standing, one hand gold, one hand flesh, as if daring the world to take more. When dawn finally bled into the clouds and the storm began to loosen its grip, Tyrion Lannister was still on deck, still alive, and still full of a pain that no distance could drown. White Harbor smelled of fish and cold stone, and it felt like another world. King's Landing had been warm even in winter, heat from too many bodies and too much rot. White Harbor's cold was clean, honest in its cruelty. The wind off the narrow sea cut through cloaks and made men pull their collars up like shy children. Tyrion Lannister stepped onto the quay and nearly slipped on seaweed. Jaime Lannister steadied Tyrion Lannister with a quick grip, then let go at once, as if remembering the storm confession and the new distance it had carved between them. They moved into the crowd, heads down. Dockworkers hauled crates. Fishmongers shouted prices. A woman with red hands slapped a carp onto a board with casual violence. Everyone was busy living. No one cared about the Queen Regent's grief. No one here had sat in a trial and watched a dwarf be condemned by hatred dressed as law. And yet Tyrion Lannister felt eyes everywhere. Not the sharp eyes of courtiers, but the steady eyes of northerners measuring strangers. White Harbor was loyal to coin and tradition, but it was still the North. The North remembered. A patrol moved along the quay, men in heavy cloaks, spears in hand, helm visors down. Manderley guards, Tyrion Lannister guessed, though he did not know their faces. Their banner, merman, trident, hung damp in the wind. Jaime Lannister's posture tightened. "Don't look," Jaime Lannister murmured, barely moving his lips. "I wasn't planning to," Tyrion Lannister murmured back. "You know I hate attention." They slipped past a stack of barrels and into a narrow lane where the smell of fish was stronger. The captain who'd brought them here had taken his coin and his ignorance and vanished. Good. The fewer ties, the fewer threads to pull. They found an alehouse near the docks. A low building with a sign showing a painted ship. Inside it was warmer, packed with sailors and merchants. Jaime Lannister pushed through to a corner table. Tyrion Lannister followed, shoulders hunched. A serving girl brought them ale. Jaime Lannister paid and said nothing else. The girl glanced at Jaime Lannister's golden hand and looked away quickly, pretending she had not seen. Tyrion Lannister drank, then set the cup down. His hands shook slightly, whether from cold or from what Jaime Lannister had told him on the storm deck. The truth sat in Tyrion Lannister's gut like a stone. "We need horses," Jaime Lannister said. "We need a story," Tyrion Lannister replied. "We need to become dull. Dull men survive." Jaime Lannister's eyes narrowed. "You're not capable of dull." Tyrion Lannister's smile was bitter. "I can pretend," Tyrion Lannister said. "It will be new for me." They listened to the room. Talk of winter coming harder than expected. Talk of Roose Bolton and the flayed man banners. Talk of Stannis Baratheon at the wall, a southern king in northern snow. Talk, too, of strange things, dead things walking beyond it. A bearded sailor at the next table spit into the rushes. "Stannis Baratheon thinks he can take Winterfell," the sailor grumbled. "He'll freeze and die like all the rest." Another man shook his head. "He's got a red witch," the man said. "They say she burns men and reads the flames." Tyrion Lannister's eyes flicked to Jaime Lannister. "A red witch," Tyrion Lannister murmured. Jaime Lannister's mouth tightened. "Melisandre," Jaime Lannister said, "name like a curse." Tyrion Lannister leaned back, letting the ale warm him. "The wall is crowded," Tyrion Lannister said. "Kings and witches and wildlings will fit right in." Jaime Lannister did not laugh. "We have to get there," Jaime Lannister said. Before the realm remembers you exist," Tyrion Lannister finished. Tyrion Lannister's fingers tapped the table. "White Harbor is a trap if we linger. Too many ships, too many tongues. Someone will recognize the lion beneath the mud." Jaime Lannister's gaze went distant. "Northmen don't love lions," Jaime Lannister said. Northmen didn't love Lannisters at all. Tyrion Lannister knew it. Jaime Lannister knew it. The North had buried its dead because of them, and the North did not forget graves. They found horses by paying too much to a stablemaster who asked too few questions. They bought heavier cloaks, rough gloves, a small tent they hoped never to use. Tyrion Lannister purchased parchment and ink because words were weapons too, and Tyrion Lannister refused to travel unarmed. As they left the market, a man's shout rose behind them. Laughter, not alarm. Tyrion Lannister's shoulders still tensed as if it had been a cry of "Imp." Jaime Lannister noticed. Jaime Lannister's gaze softened a fraction, then hardened again, as if softness were dangerous. They rode out of White Harbor under a sky the color of old steel. The road north was lined with bare trees, branches like claws. Snow lay in patches, stubborn. Tyrion Lannister's breath came out in white puffs. "Do you regret it?" Tyrion Lannister asked suddenly, voice low. Jaime Lannister did not look at Tyrion Lannister. "Regret what?" "Choosing the wall," Tyrion Lannister said. "Choosing me?" Jaime Lannister's jaw worked. "I regret a great many things," Jaime Lannister said at last. "But not this." Tyrion Lannister watched Jaime Lannister's profile, saw the tension there, the resolve. Tyrion Lannister wanted to believe the words. Tyrion Lannister did not trust belief. Tyrion Lannister trusted only motion. So Tyrion Lannister urged his horse onward, and the north swallowed them, cold and quiet, like a mouth closing. The Kingsroad in the north was not the Kingsroad in the south. In the south, it was a ribbon of commerce and gossip. In the north, it was a scar through wilderness, long and lonely, bordered by trees that leaned in like eavesdroppers. Snow dusted the ruts. The wind carried the scent of pine and something older, something that reminded Tyrion Lannister of stone crypts. They rode in silence more often now. Words felt risky, as if saying too much might invite the gods to listen. Tyrion Lannister's mind kept circling back to Tisha, to Jaime Lannister's confession delivered like a knife in rain. Anger rose and fell like tides. Sometimes Tyrion Lannister wanted to spit in Jaime Lannister's face. Sometimes Tyrion Lannister wanted to hold on to Jaime Lannister as the last familiar thing in a world turning stranger by the mile. A cart appeared ahead, moving south, an old wagon with black paint peeling. Two men walked beside it in black cloaks. The sight made Tyrion Lannister sit up in the saddle. The Night's Watch, already before the wall. The men in black looked like winter itself had put on boots. Faces weathered, eyes pale with exhaustion. One had a raven cage rattling at the cart's back. Chains clinked beneath the wagon's boards, and Tyrion Lannister realized with a twist that prisoners were inside. Recruits, perhaps, dragged north rather than sent. As they passed, one black brother looked up. His gaze swept Jaime Lannister, lingered a fraction on the golden hand, then moved on. No recognition, Tyrion Lannister hoped. Or perhaps recognition and the good sense to swallow it. The black brother spat into the snow. "Wall's hungry," the man said to no one in particular. Tyrion Lannister leaned forward in the saddle. "Always," Tyrion Lannister said, voice mild. The man's eyes flicked to Tyrion Lannister. "You heading north?" the man asked. "We are," Jaime Lannister said. The black brother snorted. "Then you're fools or saints," the man said. "Either way, you'll freeze." "And you?" Tyrion Lannister asked. "What are you?" The man's mouth twisted. "Tired," the man said. Then he slapped the cart and urged it on. The encounter left a taste in Tyrion Lannister's mouth. The Watch was not a myth. It was men like that, hard, worn, cynical, doing a job the realm preferred to forget. They made camp one night beneath pines, a small fire barely allowed to live. Tyrion Lannister huddled in a cloak and watched the flames lick at sticks. Jaime Lannister sat opposite, sharpening a small dagger with careful strokes. "You'll have to take vows," Tyrion Lannister said finally. Jaime Lannister's eyes stayed on the blade. "I know. No lands. No titles. No women," Tyrion Lannister said, and could not keep bitterness out of his voice. "No children. No family." Jaime Lannister's sharpening stopped. For a moment, Jaime Lannister looked up at the dark trees, as if expecting them to answer. "Family," Jaime Lannister said quietly. "That word has been poison for me." Tyrion Lannister poked at the fire. "It's been poison for us both," Tyrion Lannister said. "But poisons can be useful. A small dose in the right cup." Jaime Lannister's mouth tightened. "You're thinking already," Jaime Lannister said. "I'm always thinking," Tyrion Lannister replied. "It's the only way I've ever survived." The next day the cold worsened. Their cloaks grew stiff with frost. Tyrion Lannister's fingers ached even inside gloves. Jaime Lannister rode with his head down, golden hand hidden, as if hiding it could hide the story that came with it. They passed a holdfast where men watched them from behind a half-closed gate. No welcome, no questions. The north was wary, and winter made men tighter with what little they had. On the third day, as twilight crept in early, Tyrion Lannister saw it. A pale line on the horizon, impossibly straight. At first Tyrion Lannister thought it was cloud, a trick of light. Then the line rose higher, whiter, and the sky seemed to end against it. "The wall," Tyrion Lannister whispered. Jaime Lannister's head lifted. Jaime Lannister's eyes narrowed, as if the wall offended him by existing. "It's bigger than I thought," Jaime Lannister said. "It's always bigger from far away," Tyrion Lannister said. "Men's mistakes too." They rode toward it, and the wall grew until it filled the world. Ice like a cliff made by gods. Tyrion Lannister felt suddenly small in a new way. Not the familiar smallness of his body, but the smallness of a man standing before something ancient and indifferent. As darkness fell, lights appeared at its base. Torches, fires, the clustered glow of a living place pressed against dead ice. Castle Black, and beyond that, shadow and rumor and whatever waited in forests that even winter feared. Tyrion Lannister swallowed. The realm behind them felt far away, like a story told by someone else. Ahead, the wall waited like a judgment. They were stopped before they reached the gate, because Castle Black did not welcome strangers in the night. 2 sentries stepped out from behind a stack of barrels, crossbows leveled. Their breath rose white. Their cloaks were patched. Their eyes were hard. "Halt," one called. "Name and business." Tyrion Lannister felt Jaime Lannister tense beside him. Names were the most dangerous things they carried. Jaime Lannister spoke, voice steady. "We're here to join the Night's Watch," Jaime Lannister said. "We bring coin for our keep until vows are said." The sentry's eyes flicked to Jaime Lannister's golden hand, and suspicion sharpened. "Coin," the sentry said like it tasted bad. "Who are you?" Tyrion Lannister could have lied, could have spun some tale of being a sellsword and his scribe. But lies at the wall had a way of freezing and cracking. Tyrion Lannister felt the weight of the moment, the way history sometimes paused to watch. "My name is Tyrion Lannister," Tyrion Lannister said. The silence that followed was total, as if even the wall leaned down to listen. The sentries did not lower their crossbows. One swore under his breath. Another shouted for help. Within moments, a half-dozen black brothers appeared, torches flaring, faces drawn with suspicion and fear. "Tyrion Lannister," one repeated, voice incredulous. "The Kingslayer's brother. And I suppose you are Jaime Lannister," another said, staring at the golden hand. Jaime Lannister's jaw tightened. "Jaime Lannister," Jaime Lannister confirmed. The black brothers muttered. Some spat. One made a sign against evil. Tyrion Lannister watched hatred bloom in their faces like frost. "Bring them," a voice called from within the yard. They were marched through the gate beneath the wall, where the ice rose above like a ceiling. Tyrion Lannister craned his neck until his throat hurt. The wall's surface gleamed faintly, reflecting torchlight like a dead moon. Inside the yard, men moved among fires and tents. Not just black cloaks, soldiers in darker armor too. Southern men with hard faces and banners snapping in the wind. Stannis Baratheon's men. Castle Black had become a camp as well as a fort. And there, near a fire that burned strangely bright, stood Jon Snow. Jon Snow was younger than Tyrion Lannister expected, but youth did not mean softness. Jon Snow's face was lean, eyes dark, expression controlled. A dire wolf pelt hung at Jon Snow's shoulders, and a sword rode at Jon Snow's hip as if it belonged there. Jon Snow looked like a man carrying too much responsibility and refusing to show the strain. Beside Jon Snow stood Stannis Baratheon, rigid in dark armor, jaw clenched like a man biting down on the world. Stannis Baratheon's eyes took in Jaime Lannister and Tyrion Lannister with a cold assessment, as if measuring how best to break them. and behind Stannis Baratheon, half in shadow, was Melisandre. Her red gown was too vivid against the snow, a wound walking. Her eyes seemed catch torchlight and hold it, not reflecting but consuming. Melisandre watched Jaime Lannister with the attention of a priest studying a sacrificial lamb. Jon Snow stepped forward. "You said your names," Jon Snow said, voice even. "Say your business."
Jaime Lannister met Jon Snow's case.
"To take the black," Jaime Lannister said. Stannis Baratheon's mouth curled. "Convenient," Stannis Baratheon said. "The murderer and the oathbreaker seeking sanctuary at the end of the world." Tyrion Lannister lifted his chin. "Sanctuary is a pretty word for a place made of ice," Tyrion Lannister said. "But yes, we've come to join." Stannis Baratheon's eyes narrowed. "Tyrion Lannister is condemned," Stannis Baratheon said. "By the laws of the realm, by the gods. Tyrion Lannister belongs in chains." "My chains are currently elsewhere," Tyrion Lannister said mildly. "But I'm sure the realm will find new ones for someone if it must." A few black brothers laughed harshly. Jon Snow did not. Jon Snow looked at Tyrion Lannister, then at Jaime Lannister. "The Night's Watch does not take part in the wars of the Seven Kingdoms," Jon Snow said. "The wall is for all, even for men the realm hates." Stannis Baratheon's gaze snapped to Jon Snow. "Even for traitors?" Stannis Baratheon demanded. Jon Snow's voice did not rise, but something in it hardened. "A man who takes the vows is no longer of the realm," Jon Snow said. "That is the law as old as the wall. If you want Tyrion Lannister for your justice, you will have to take him before he swears." Melisandre stepped closer, red sleeves trailing. Melisandre's gaze slid over Tyrion Lannister like fingers over skin, then fixed on Jaime Lannister's golden hand. "There is power in broken things," Melisandre murmured, more to herself than anyone. "Fire shows me a hand of gold, and snow." Jaime Lannister's eyes flicked to Melisandre, wary. Tyrion Lannister felt a chill that had nothing to do with wind. Stannis Baratheon's jaw worked. "I have enemies enough," Stannis Baratheon said. "I will not shelter more." Jon Snow held Stannis Baratheon's gaze, unblinking. "Then let them take the vows quickly," Jon Snow said, "and be done." Stannis Baratheon looked away first, anger like a cloak.
Fine, Stannis Baratheon snapped.
"Let them swear, but if they break faith, I will hang them from your wall." Tyrion Lannister spread his hands. "A charming welcome," Tyrion Lannister said. Jon Snow's gaze returned to Tyrion Lannister, then softened a fraction. Not kindness exactly, but recognition of danger. "You will be watched," Jon Snow said. "We're used to that," Tyrion Lannister replied. Jon Snow nodded once. "Bowen Marsh," Jon Snow called, and an older black brother stepped forward, face stern. "Find them a place, keep them separate, and send word to the Sept. No, the gods would. We'll do it by the old gods. Quicker." Jaime Lannister's brow furrowed. Tyrion Lannister almost smiled. "The gods would at the wall. A southern lion swee. Ring vows beneath a northern tree." The world had an odd sense of humor. As they were led away, Tyrion Lannister glanced back. Melisandre's eyes followed Jaime Lannister like a thread. Stannis Baratheon stood stiff by the fire, already turning his mind to battles beyond the wall or at Winterfell. Jon Snow watched them go, face unreadable, as if calculating whether this was a gift or a new kind of trouble. Snow began to fall harder, soft flakes that clung to Tyrion Lannister's cloak and melted on his eyelashes. Castle Black creaked and groaned beneath the wall's weight, a living thing pressed against frozen death. Tyrion Lannister felt the hunt behind them fade, not because it ended but because distance dulled it. Ahead, another hunt waited, one with no queen, no court, no gold to bribe, only ice, only night, only vows. Before dawn, the Godswood was a pocket of silence carved out of Castle Black's creaking, coughing life. Snow lay like ash on the ground. The weirwood stood pale against the dark, its bark white as old bone, its carved face bleeding red leaves that did not fall. The eyes looked down without mercy, as if the tree had watched men swear promises for 1,000 years and learned how quickly men broke them. Tyrion Lannister knelt in the snow and felt cold seep through his trousers, into his knees, into the joints that already ached from travel. Jaime Lannister knelt beside him, posture stiff, head bowed. Jaime Lannister wore black now, black wool cloak, black tunic. The color did not flatter Jaime Lannister, but it did suit him in a way White never had. White had always demanded purity Jaime Lannister could not give. Jon Snow stood before them, long claw at his hip, breath steady. Bowen Marsh and a handful of brothers watched from a short distance, faces tight. Suspicion clung to them like frost. Tyrion Lannister did not blame them. If Tyrion Lannister were a black brother, Tyrion Lannister would not welcome lions either. At the edge of the torchlight, Melisandre stood very still, a red shape in the dark, eyes fixed on Jaime Lannister's golden hand as if it were a prophecy carved in metal. Tyrion Lannister tried not to look at her. It felt safer to ignore fire when surrounded by ice. Jon Snow spoke the words, and Jaime Lannister repeated them, voice rough. Night gathers, Jaime Lannister said, and the words sounded strange from a mouth that had once spoken vows to kings. And now my watch begins. Tyrion Lannister followed, voice steady despite the cold biting his lips. It shall not end until my death, Tyrion Lannister said. The words were heavy. Tyrion Lannister felt them settle on his shoulders like a cloak. They spoke of taking no wife, holding no lands, fathering no children. Tyrion Lannister almost laughed at that one. Fate had already enforced it. Now Tyrion Lannister simply agreed in public. When they finished, Jon Snow nodded once, as if sealing the thing. Rise, Jon Snow said. Jaime Lannister rose first, black cloak shifting. Tyrion Lannister rose, joints protesting. For a moment Tyrion Lannister swayed. Jaime Lannister's flesh hand twitched as if to steady Tyrion Lannister, then stilled. Tyrion Lannister steadied himself alone. Bowen Marsh stepped forward, expression stiff. Your brothers now, Bowen Marsh said, as if the words pained him. Don't make us regret it. I regret everything, Tyrion Lannister said pleasantly. It's my hobby. A few brothers snorted. Bowen Marsh did not smile. Jon Snow gestured toward the castle. You'll be given work, Jon Snow said. You'll follow orders. You'll keep the peace. You'll stay out of Stannis Baratheon's way. Tyrion Lannister's eyebrows lifted. Stannis Baratheon is difficult to stay out of, Tyrion Lannister said. Stannis Baratheon seems to believe the world was built to obstruct him personally. Jon Snow's mouth twitched, the smallest hint of amusement quickly buried. Stannis Baratheon is an ally, Jon Snow said, and the word sounded like it cost him. For now, Tyrion Lannister echoed. Tyrion Lannister glanced at the wall looming beyond the trees, a pale presence even in darkness. And what of the enemy you truly fear? Jon Snow's gaze followed Tyrion Lannister's, and for a moment Jon Snow looked younger, not in face but in the weight behind his eyes. The dead, Jon Snow said quietly. And what drives them? Jaime Lannister's head turned sharply. The dead, Jaime Lannister repeated, voice skeptical. Jon Snow did not look away. I have seen things beyond the wall, Jon Snow said. Things that make kings and queens seem like children fighting over a toy. Tyrion Lannister's interest sharpened. If that's true, Tyrion Lannister said softly, then you need more than swords. Jon Snow studied Tyrion Lannister. You think you can help? Jon Snow said, not accusation, not belief, an assessment. I can count, Tyrion Lannister said. I can plan. I can read. I can tell the difference between courage and stupidity, which is rarer than Valyrian steel. Jaime Lannister let out a breath that might have been a laugh. Jon Snow's gaze flicked to Jaime Lannister. And you? Jon Snow asked. Jaime Lannister's eyes went distant, as if looking through the wall to something beyond. I can teach men to hold a line, Jaime Lannister said. I can make cowards stand long enough to be brave. Melisandre's voice drifted in from the edge of light. Or long enough to burn, Melisandre murmured. Jon Snow's jaw tightened. Enough, Jon Snow said, and the single word shut the air like a door. Tyrion Lannister watched Jon Snow then and understood something important. Jon Snow was a young man forced to be older than he should, balancing kings and brothers and wildlings and witches like knives on his palms. Jon Snow did not have room for more trouble, which meant Tyrion Lannister would have to become useful faster than trouble could. Later, in a cramped cell-like room assigned to them, Tyrion Lannister set parchment on a rough table and lit a stub of candle. Jaime Lannister sat on the bunk, staring at the black cloak folded beside him as if it were a stranger. Tyrion Lannister dipped a quill into ink. "First question," Tyrion Lannister said. "How many mouths does Castle Black feed?" Jaime Lannister blinked. "What?" Tyrion Lannister looked up, eyes bright in candlelight. "Men do not fight on honor," Tyrion Lannister said. "Men fight on bread. If the dead are coming, we need bread. If wildlings are coming, we need bread. If Stannis Baratheon is camping here, gods help us, we need bread." Jaime Lannister stared at Tyrion Lannister, then shook his head slowly. "You're already turning it into survival," Tyrion Lannister interrupted, quill scratching. "Yes." A distant horn blew, long and low, and the sound carried through. Up Castle Black like a spine chill. Tyrion Lannister paused, ink dripping from the quill. Jaime Lannister's head snapped up. Jon Snow's voice echoed somewhere outside, shouting orders. Men moved. Boots thudded. The fortress woke like a beast sensing danger. Tyrion Lannister set the quill down and listened to the horn's fading note. "That," Tyrion Lannister said softly, "was not a southern horn." Jaime Lannister stood, face hard. "No," Jaime Lannister said. They went to the narrow window. Outside, torches bobbed in the yard like fireflies. Beyond them, the wall loomed, silent and vast. And beyond the wall, somewhere in the dark woods Tyrion Lannister could not see, something answered with a cold so deep it felt like the world holding its breath. Tyrion Lannister looked at Jaime Lannister's face in the candlelight. Jaime Lannister looked back, and for the first time since the Red Keep's underpassages, Tyrion Lannister saw the same truth in both of them. They had escaped one kind of death. They had ridden into another. The horn's note was still in Tyrion Lannister's bones when he and Jaime Lannister reached the yard. Men spilled from doors like ants kicked from a nest. Black cloaks pulled tight, boots thudding on packed snow, voices sharp with questions that no one answered. Torches made small suns in the dark. Above it all the wall loomed, a pale cliff that drank the light and gave back nothing. Another horn did not follow the first. Tyrion Lannister clung to that small mercy. One blast, not wildlings. Not 3 blasts. Not the thing men spoke of only when drunk and half-mad with fear. Ghost was their first, slipping through the crowd without a sound, white as a shard of the wall that had learned to walk. The direwolf's red eyes caught firelight and held it. Jon Snow followed a pace behind, black cloak flaring, face set, as if his skin had learned to wear command. Jon Snow's gaze cut through men until it found the gate, and Tyrion Lannister saw the exact moment something tightened in Jon Snow's expression. Rangers were coming in. They did not look like men returning from a successful ride beyond the wall. They looked like a story told in frost. Their beards were rimed white, their brows cracked with cold. One man had a strip of cloth tied around his head where blood had frozen and stained it dark. 2 of them dragged a rough sled between them. Something lay on it, wrapped in a cloak that had gone stiff as bark. Tyrion Lannister stepped closer despite himself. Jaime Lannister moved with him, shoulders squared, as if the yard were a battlefield and he were already arranging it in his mind. The sled scraped over snow and stopped before Jon Snow. A ranger with a face like weather pushed back his hood. "Lord Commander," the ranger rasped. His voice sounded like it had been flayed by wind. Jon Snow did not correct the title. "Who is it?" Jon Snow asked, eyes on the wrapped shape. "A man," the ranger said. "Or was. Found south of the Milkwater, half buried. No tracks, no camp. Just left. Jon Snow's jaw tightened. Bring him to the ice cells, Jon Snow ordered. At the word ice, Bowen Marsh appeared at Jon Snow's shoulder. Lips pursed as if every new problem tasted bitter. Othell Yarwyck came too, broad and thick-necked, the first builder's hands already red from cold and labor. Both men looked at Jaime Lannister and Tyrion Lannister as if deciding whether lions belonged in this yard at all. The wrapped body shifted as the sled was hauled again, the stiff cloak cracking. Tyrion Lannister saw a pale hand slip free for a heartbeat. Fingers blue, nails blackened. A smell drifted with it, faint but wrong, like meat left too long near a fire and then left too long in a cellar. Tyrion Lannister's stomach clenched. He had smelled corpses before, in war camps and after riots. This was different. This was cold rot. A quiet insistence that life was not simply ended but inverted. Ghost's ears flattened. A low growl rumbled in the direwolf's chest, deep enough to feel. In the air, Jon Snow's eyes narrowed. "No one touches it barehanded," Jon Snow said, voice hardening. "And if it moves, we burn it," said a voice from the crowd, bitter as old wine. Dolorous Edison Tollett edged into torchlight, lanky and hollow-eyed, a man who looked like he'd been carved out of bad news. He gave Tyrion Lannister a glance that held neither awe nor hatred, only the resigned interest of someone watching a storm gather. "We always burn them," Dolorous Edison Tollett added. "It's just usually after they've tried to eat someone." A few men laughed, the sound tight and quick, as if laughter could keep fear from settling in the lungs. Jon Snow looked at Dolorous Edison Tollett, then at the Rangers. "Report to me," Jon Snow said. "All of it, every sign." "Aye," the Ranger said, and coughed. Bringing up something dark, he spat into the snow. As the sled moved toward the ice cells, Stannis Baratheon's men pushed into view near the King's Tower, mail and plate catching torchlight. They watched with the wary curiosity of men who believed themselves hardened and had not yet learned the wall could harden you further. One of them muttered a prayer to the Lord of Light. Another made a sign against evil. Southern habits in northern cold. Tyrion Lannister found himself beside Jon Snow, close enough to hear Jon Snow's breath. Jon Snow did not look at him. Jon Snow's eyes tracked the sled until it vanished into the dark mouth of the ice tunnel. "You've seen this," Tyrion Lannister murmured. Jon Snow's gaze flicked to Tyrion Lannister at last. "I've seen worse," Jon Snow said. "And I've seen men die because they didn't believe it could be worse." Jaime Lannister stepped forward. "Is it true?" Jaime Lannister asked, voice steady, but Tyrion Lannister heard the tension beneath it. "Dead men walking." Jon Snow held Jaime Lannister's stare for a long moment. "It's true," Jon Snow said, "and it doesn't care who you were before you came here." That, Tyrion Lannister thought, was the honest cruelty of the wall. It did not flatter. It did not bargain. It only demanded. Jon Snow turned, cloak snapping. "Bowen Marsh," Jon Snow called. "Keep your stewards out of the ice tunnel unless I order it. Othell Yarwyck, I want the tunnel watched from both ends. Twice the men. And no torches near the body. Fire stays ready, but it stays controlled." Othell Yarwyck grunted, already thinking in angles and stone. Bowen Marsh's mouth tightened, but he nodded. Jon Snow's gaze swept the yard again, taking in Jaime Lannister and Tyrion Lannister. "You," Jon Snow said, and the word landed like a hand on the shoulder. "With me." Tyrion Lannister exchanged a look with Jaime Lannister. Jaime Lannister's face was unreadable in torchlight, but Tyrion Lannister saw a familiar flicker there. The calm before a plan. They followed Jon Snow into the dark, leaving the yard behind, leaving the wall's vast silence pressing down like a question no one wanted to answer. Jon Snow's solar was smaller than Tyrion Lannister expected for a Lord Commander, and that, Tyrion Lannister thought, was the point. The Night's Watch did not build thrones. It built rooms that held men upright long enough to work. A fire burned in a narrow hearth, and the warmth it offered was modest, like an honest promise. Maps lay on the table, rough sketches of the wall, the gift, the haunted forest beyond. Ledgers were stacked like bricks, each one a weight of winter. Ghost lay near the hearth, head on paws, eyes half-lidded but aware of everything. The dire wolf watched Tyrion Lannister with the same calm suspicion the wall seemed to have for all newcomers. Jon Snow did not waste words. "You were both lords," Jon Snow said, voice flat. "You were both players in the wars. Here your brothers. That means you work." Tyrion Lannister eased into a chair as if it might bite. "Work I can do," Tyrion Lannister said. "I'm not much use at swinging swords." Jaime Lannister's mouth twitched. Not amusement, something sharper. "You're better at swinging words," Jaime Lannister said. Jon Snow's gaze moved between them. "Words and steel both matter," Jon Snow said. "But you'll learn something quickly. The wall doesn't fall because men can't fight. It falls because men can't eat. It falls because men quarrel. It falls because men break." Tyrion Lannister leaned forward, interest catching like tinder. "Then you need numbers," Tyrion Lannister said. "Stores, mouths, time. You need a plan that doesn't assume the gods will send food." Jon Snow's eyes narrowed slightly, and Tyrion Lannister saw the calculation there. Jon Snow was not a fool. Jon Snow had been forced to become a judge of men. "Bowen Marsh keeps the stores," Jon Snow said. As if summoned by his name, Bowen Marsh entered with a stack of accounts held close to his chest like a shield. His eyes moved to Tyrion Lannister, then to Jaime Lannister, and his mouth tightened. Bowen Marsh looked like a man who had spent his life counting sacks of grain and watching sacks of grain disappear. "Lord Commander," Bowen Marsh said, "the Queen's men want." Later, Jon Snow cut in. "Bowen Marsh, Tyrion Lannister says he can count." Bowen Marsh's brows drew together. "So can I," Bowen Marsh said, stiff. "I believe you," Tyrion Lannister said, voice mild. "But you can't count while a king camps in your yard and wildlings press at your gates and corpses come back wrong. You need help." Bowen Marsh looked as if he'd rather swallow a nail. "Help from a Lannister," Bowen Marsh muttered. "A Lannister who took your vows," Jon Snow said, voice sharpening. "A brother. If you can't treat him as such, you'll treat him as my order." Bowen Marsh's jaw worked. Finally, he shoved the stack of accounts onto the table. "Fine," Bowen Marsh said. "If he cheats us, I'll hang him myself." Tyrion Lannister smiled. "I admire your optimism," Tyrion Lannister said. "Hanging assumes we'll have rope left after winter." Jon Snow. W turned to Jaime Lannister. "And you?" Jon Snow asked. Jaime Lannister did not flinch. "You need men who can hold a line when fear wants to scatter them," Jaime Lannister said. "You need training that isn't boys waving sticks until they're tired." Jon Snow's gaze tightened. "Iron Emmett trains the men," Jon Snow said. "Iron Emmett can make them swing," Jaime Lannister said. "I can make them think." Tyrion Lannister watched Jon Snow's face, waiting for the refusal. Kingslayer, Oathbreaker. But Jon Snow's expression shifted only slightly, like a door opening a crack. "Then you'll work with Iron Emmett," Jon Snow said. "You'll keep your pride out of it, or I'll put you on latrines until your hands stink of your own mistakes." Jaime Lannister's mouth tightened, then he nodded once. "As you command," Jaime Lannister said. The door creaked, and a man slipped in carrying a small cage where a raven shifted and blinked. Clydas, Maester Aemon's old steward, now serving as maester in all but chain, moved with careful quiet. His eyes lingered on Tyrion Lannister, then slid away. "Lord Commander," Clydas said. "Ravens from Eastwatch, and one from the south." Jon Snow's eyes snapped to the cage. "From the south." Clydas hesitated. "King's Landing," Clydas said. Tyrion Lannister felt something cold unfurl in his gut. But Jon Snow reached for the message first, breaking the seal with blunt efficiency. Jon Snow read silently, face tightening, then handed the parchment to Tyrion Lannister without a word. Tyrion Lannister took it and read, his eyes moving quickly. The script was neat, the words polite in the way a dagger could be polite. The message demanded information. The Night's Watch had harbored traitors, it said. It had sheltered enemies of the crown. It must clarify its position. It did not name Tyrion Lannister. It did not name Jaime Lannister. It did not have to. The threat was written in the spaces between lines. Jon Snow watched Tyrion Lannister's face. "They know," Jon Snow said quietly. "Or they suspect," Tyrion Lannister replied, folding the parchment carefully. "King's Landing always suspects. It's a city built on suspicion like a house built on rot." Jaime Lannister's posture stiffened. "Cersei Lannister," Jaime Lannister said, and the name sounded like metal grinding. Jon Snow's gaze flicked to Jaime Lannister. "I won't have the Watch dragged into Southern wars," Jon Snow said. "I don't care what Queen writes, what threat. The Wall stands apart. And will she accept that?" Tyrion Lannister asked softly. Jon Snow's mouth tightened. "She'll accept it," Jon Snow said. "Or she'll learn the Wall doesn't bend." Tyrion Lannister admired the stubbornness even as he feared it. Stubborn men could save a fortress. Stubborn men could also get it killed. Jon Snow gathered the other messages. "Eastwatch," Jon Snow said, turning to Clydas. "Anything urgent?" "Hardhome is worse," Clydas said. "Cotter Pike writes that the dead are troubling. Indeed, the wildlings there are starving." Jon Snow's eyes darkened. "We'll read it after," Jon Snow said. "For now." Jon Snow looked at Tyrion Lannister and Jaime Lannister, and Tyrion Lannister felt the weight of being seen not as a condemned man but as a tool. "You wanted purpose," Jon Snow said. "Here it is. Help me hold this wall. Help me keep these men from tearing each other apart while the cold takes us all." Tyrion Lannister dipped his head, a gesture half bow, half acceptance. "Then we should begin," Tyrion Lannister said, "with the simplest question. How many mouths are in Castle Black today?" Jon Snow's gaze held Tyrion Lannister's for a heartbeat, and in it Tyrion Lannister saw exhaustion, resolve, and a faint flicker of something like relief. "Too many," Jon Snow said, "and more coming." Tyrion Lannister reached for a ledger. Jaime Lannister's golden hand rested on the chair back, steady. Ghost watched them both, and the fire snapped softly, as if winter itself were listening. The stores smelled of old grain and cold stone, a scent that promised survival if treated with respect. Tyrion Lannister followed Bowen Marsh down steps slick with frost, lantern light painting their shadows long and thin. Wooden beams creaked overhead. Barrels lined the walls like an army at rest, each one a soldier of salt beef, dried beans, hardtack that could break a tooth if you tried to bite it with pride. Bowen Marsh moved through the space with the familiarity of a man walking his own ribs. His lips stayed pursed, as if every breath was an argument. "We have what we have," Bowen Marsh said, voice tight, "and every day we have less." Tyrion Lannister set his ledger on a barrel and flipped to a clean page. The ink froze slowly in the inkwell. Winter had no patience for paperwork. "Then we count honestly," Tyrion Lannister said. "Not what we wish we had. Not what men swear we have because they don't like the sound of shortage. We count what is, and then we decide what can be made to last." Bowen Marsh's eyes narrowed. "You think I lie?" "I think men lie even when they don't mean to," Tyrion Lannister said. "They lie because the truth makes them feel weak. Winter doesn't care how we feel." Dolorous Edison Tollett lurked behind them, carrying a sack of barley like a man lugging his own coffin. "Winter cares," Dolorous Edison Tollett said. "Winter cares a great deal. Winter wants us all dead. It's very passionate." Tyrion Lannister glanced back at Dolorous Edison Tollett and found himself unexpectedly amused. "You must be fun at feasts," Tyrion Lannister said. Dolorous Edison Tollett's mouth twitched. "I was once," Dolorous Edison Tollett said. "Then I went to a feast and everyone died." Bowen Marsh made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Less talk," Bowen Marsh said. "More counting." They counted barrels, sacks, smoked fish, wheels of hard cheese sweating in the cold. Tyrion Lannister asked questions Bowen Marsh did not like. How much went to Stannis Baratheon's men? How much went to the King's Tower? How much went to the wildling prisoners? How much was lost to spoilage, rats, theft? Each answer tightened Bowen Marsh's jaw further, because each answer was a confession that the wall's strength was not ice or stone but logistics. A Stannis Baratheon soldier waited at the store door, cloak dark, eyes impatient. "The king wants more salt beef," the soldier said for the third time. Bowen Marsh's cheeks flushed. "The king can want," Bowen Marsh snapped. "I can't conjure beef from snow." The soldier's hand went to his sword hilt, not drawing, only reminding. "The king holds your wall," the soldier said, voice cold. "And the wall holds the king," Tyrion Lannister said mildly, without looking up from his ledger. The soldier's gaze flicked to Tyrion Lannister, startled by the audacity of a small man in black wool. "And who are you to speak?" the soldier demanded. "A hungry man," Tyrion Lannister said, and finally looked up. "If Stannis Baratheon wants beef today and beef tomorrow, Stannis Baratheon must decide whose mouth he means to fill when the beef runs out." The soldier's eyes narrowed. "The king decides," the soldier said. "Then tell the king," Tyrion Lannister said, voice calm, "that the stores are not a bottomless purse. They are a clock. Every mouth is a hand turning the hour." Bowen Marsh stared at Tyrion Lannister as if Tyrion Lannister had spoken blasphemy. Dolorous Edison Tollet adjusted his sack and nodded solemnly. "Clocks are terrible," Dolorous Edison Tollet said. "They never stop, except when they do, which is worse." The soldier left in a huff, boots crunching on the steps. Bowen Marsh watched him go, then turned on Tyrion Lannister. "You'll start a war," Bowen Marsh hissed. "A war," Tyrion Lannister repeated, and the word tasted almost sweet with irony. "Bowen Marsh, the war is already here. We're just pretending it's made of parchment and pride instead of teeth." Bowen Marsh's eyes flashed. "You know nothing of this place," Bowen Marsh said. "I know hunger," Tyrion Lannister said quietly. "Not the hunger of an empty belly alone, the hunger of men who fear there won't be enough. That hunger makes thieves and mutineers and kings. If we do not plan, men will plan for themselves, and their plans will be uglier than mine." Bowen Marsh's mouth tightened. "And what is your plan, then?" Bowen Marsh demanded. Tyrion Lannister flipped his ledger closed and tapped it with the quill. "We separate mouths," Tyrion Lannister said. "We make clear lines, watch stores, king stores, wildling stores. We count them daily. We ration early, not late. We trade. We send ravens south, not begging for honor, but demanding grain as the price of their continued breathing." Bowen Marsh looked as if he might spit. "The South won't send," Bowen Marsh said. Tyrion Lannister smiled without humor. "Then the South can freeze later," Tyrion Lannister said. "But they'll send, if the message is written properly." "Properly?" Bowen Marsh echoed, suspicious. "With fear," Tyrion Lannister said simply. "Men ignore honor. Men ignore duty. Men do not ignore death when it is written in numbers they can understand." Dolorous Edison Tollet set down his sack and rubbed his hands. "Numbers," Dolorous Edison Tollet said. "I always knew they'd kill us." Tyrion Lannister picked up his lantern. The light trembled, making the barrels seem like a crowd watching. "One more thing," Tyrion Lannister said. Bowen Marsh's eyes narrowed. "What now?" "Empty space," Tyrion Lannister said. "If we have to shelter more wildlings, more refugees, more men who come south chased by the dead, we need room for them that isn't your yard. The abandoned castles." Bowen Marsh's face tightened in a way that told Tyrion Lannister he had found a nerve. "Those castles are dead," Bowen Marsh snapped. "Then we make them less dead than we will be otherwise," Tyrion Lannister said. Bowen Marsh stared and Ion Lannister saw in the older man's eyes something like fear, quickly masked as anger. Fear of change. Fear of failure. Fear that the wall, old as it was, might not be old enough to protect them. Tyrion Lannister turned back to his ledger. Outside, somewhere above, the wall waited in silence, and Tyrion Lannister wrote numbers that felt like prayers. The training yard was a square of trampled snow and stubborn men. The wind came down off the wall like a whip. Wooden swords clacked, dull impacts that still bruised. Iron Emmett stood in the middle like a post driven into the earth. Broad-shouldered, scarred, voice loud enough to make even the wall flinch. Again, Iron Emmett barked, and a line of recruits swung, missed, overbalanced, cursed. Jaime Lannister stood at the edge at first, watching with a commander's eye. These men weren't knights. They were criminals, farm boys, second sons, drunks. Their feet were wrong, their grip sloppy, their fear hidden behind bravado. Iron Emmett could make them stronger. Jaime Lannister could make them steadier. Iron Emmett turned and saw Jaime Lannister. His gaze flicked to the golden hand, then to Jaime Lannister's face. "You," Iron Emmett said. "Kingslayer." The word struck the yard like a thrown stone. A few men snorted. One spat. Jaime Lannister's jaw tightened, but he did not look away. "I'm a brother," Jaime Lannister said. Iron Emmett's mouth twisted. "A brother with a golden hand," Iron Emmett said. "You here to teach us how to lose?" A ripple of laughter went through the recruits. Jaime Lannister felt heat rise in his cheeks. Once, he would have cut laughter out of men with a look and a sword. Now he had neither the hand nor the authority he used to command that silence. "I'm here to learn," Jaime Lannister said, voice steady, "and to help." Iron Emmett stepped closer, eyes hard. "You help by not being in my way," Iron Emmett said. Jaime Lannister nodded once. Then Jaime Lannister stepped into the yard and took up a wooden sword. The recruits watched, hungry for humiliation. The Kingslayer with a stump, the lion in the snow. Jaime Lannister fitted the wooden sword into his left hand. The grip felt wrong, like holding a child's toy with a stranger's fingers. Jaime Lannister raised the blade, set his feet as Iron Emmett did, and tried to remember the rhythm of his body when it had been whole. Iron Emmett gestured to a recruit, a thick-necked boy with a crooked smile. "You," Iron Emmett said, "show him what the wall teaches." The boy stepped forward, swinging his wooden sword with crude enthusiasm. Jaime Lannister parried too late. The boy's blade cracked against Jaime Lannister's shoulder. Pain blossomed sharp. Laughter. Jaime Lannister gritted his teeth. The boy swung again. Jaime Lannister tried to pivot. His left foot slipped. Snow betrayed him. The blade hit his ribs. More laughter, louder. A snowball sailed from somewhere and slapped Jaime Lannister's cloak, exploding cold against black wool. Jaime Lannister's vision narrowed, not with rage alone but with shame. The old Jaime Lannister, the one who had danced with a sword and made kings tremble, was a ghost in his own skin. Iron Emmett watched without expression. "Again," Iron Emmett said. The boy swung. Jaime Lannister forced himself not to flinch. Jaime Lannister stepped into the blow, closed distance, and used his shoulder and hip the way he would have once used speed. The wooden swords collided. Jaime Lannister's left hand screamed. Jaime Lannister's right arm, missing hand, moved by habit, useless. The boy grinned, thinking he had it. Jaime Lannister headbutted him. The boy staggered, surprised, nose bleeding. The yard went quiet for half a heartbeat. Jaime Lannister used the moment, stolen, ugly, and hooked the boy's ankle with his boot, sending him down into the snow. The boy landed hard, wind knocked out. Jaime Lannister stood over him, breathing smoke. Silence spread, uncomfortable. Jaime Lannister looked at Iron Emmett. "The wall teaches?" Jaime Lannister said. Iron Emmett's eyes narrowed, then a slow, reluctant smile tugged at one corner of his mouth. "It teaches you don't get to be pretty," Iron Emmett said. "Not here." Jaime Lannister lowered the wooden sword. "Good," Jaime Lannister said. "Pretty never held a gate." A man at the yard's edge, wildling by his leather tunic and rough beard, watched with arms crossed. Leathers, Tyrion Lannister had heard someone call him, one of the free folk who had sworn to Jon Snow. His eyes measured Jaime Lannister with a different kind of judgment, less spiteful, more curious. Iron Emmett snapped his fingers. "Form up," Iron Emmett shouted. You want to laugh? Laugh after you can keep your feet. The recruits shuffled into lines. Jaime Lannister stepped among them, not as a lord but as a brother, and began correcting stances with words instead of hands. He spoke of weight, of breath, of fear. He spoke of holding a shield wall, of not breaking when the man beside you screamed. He spoke of how men died when they thought of themselves first. A recruit with a scar on his cheek spat. "Why listen to you?" the man sneered. "You killed your king." Jaime Lannister felt every eye in the yard turn to him. Even Leathers leaned forward slightly. Jaime Lannister's golden hand flexed, metal squeaking softly beneath cloth. "I killed a king," Jaime Lannister said. His voice was low, carrying. "And if you live long enough, you'll learn there are worse things than killing kings. There are things that don't bleed when you cut them. Things that don't beg." The recruit opened his mouth, then shut it. The wind carried a distant sound. Ice shifting, the wall settling, like the world exhaling. Jaime Lannister looked down the line of men. "When that day comes," Jaime Lannister said, "you'll wish the only enemy you ever faced was a man." Iron Emmett watched Jaime Lannister for a long moment, then nodded once. "Sharp." "Again," Iron Emmett said. "All of you, again." The wooden swords rose. The clack began anew. Jaime Lannister stood in the snow and taught men to be less afraid, even as he learned the shape of his own fear in a left hand that still did not quite belong to him. The Shieldhall was too small for the anger inside it. Torches smoked against the rafters. Men packed shoulder to shoulder, black cloaks mingling with fur cloaks, steel with bone, Southron mail with wildling leather. The air was thick with sweat and suspicion. Tormund Giantsbane sat like a mountain that had decided to wear a grin. His beard was shot with frost and laughter. His hands looked like they could break a man's neck and then clap him on the back. Wildling chiefs flanked him. Women with knives at their belts, men with scarred faces and eyes that did not bow. They stared at the Night's Watch with a mix of contempt and wary hope. Jon Snow sat at the high table, face controlled, but Tyrion Lannister could see the tension in his jaw. Bowen Marsh sat nearby, lips pinched. Septon Celador hovered like a nervous bird, smelling faintly of sour wine. Tyrion Lannister stood with a roll of parchment in his hands, feeling absurdly like a maester in black. Jaime Lannister stood a few paces behind him, not at ease, not threatening. Simply present, a reminder that steel existed even when men pretended only words mattered. Tormund Giantsbane's eyes flicked to Tyrion Lannister. "So," Tormund Giantsbane boomed, voice filling the hall, "the little lion writes our fate on sheep's skin." Tyrion Lannister offered a small bow. "Sheep," Tyrion Lannister said, "are underrated. They provide wool. Wool keeps you warm. Warmth keeps you alive. We're all in the sheep business now." A rumble of laughter rose from some wildlings. A few black brothers scowled as if laughter were treason. Jon Snow's gaze cut through the noise. "We are here to settle terms," Jon Snow said. "The free folk cross through the wall. They swear to keep the king's peace. They give hostages. They lay down certain weapons. In return, they get land in the gift and protection." "Protection?" A wildling woman spat, and the word landed like spit. "From you." Tyrion Lannister stepped forward before Jon Snow could answer. "From winter," Tyrion Lannister said simply. "From starvation. From the dead. If you believe the dead are only stories, then by all means go back. Freeze proudly." The wildling woman's eyes narrowed. Tormund Giantsbane leaned back, studying Tyrion Lannister as if tasting him. "He's got teeth," Tormund Giantsbane said, pleased. "Not good teeth, but teeth." A murmur ran through the watch ranks. Bowen Marsh's face reddened. "They're savages," Bowen Marsh muttered to Septon Celador, loud enough to be heard. "They'll slit our throats in our sleep." Tormund Giantsbane's grin widened, hearing it. "We do slit throats," Tormund Giantsbane agreed cheerfully. "But usually we do it with a kiss first." Some wildlings laughed. Some black brothers shifted, hands near blades. Jaime Lannister took one step forward, and the movement alone quieted the nearest men. Jaime Lannister's face was calm in the way a drawn sword was calm. Jon Snow glanced back at Jaime Lannister, a brief look of acknowledgement, then returned to Tormund Giantsbane. "Enough," Jon Snow said. "Listen." Tyrion Lannister unrolled the parchment on a rough table. It was written in plain words, no flourishes, because fancy language was a luxury Winter would eat. "Here," Tyrion Lannister said, tapping the first lines, "you cross by groups. You are counted. The watch assigns you land, old abandoned holdings in the gift where the ground can still be worked. You may hunt and farm. You do not raid south of the wall. If you do, you hang." A wildling man with a bone necklace snorted. "You hang us?" he demanded. "No," Tyrion Lannister said. "We hang you together, the watch and your own leaders. That way if you break the peace, you can't call it Southron cruelty. You'll have your own hands on the rope." Tormund Giantsbane's eyes sharpened, impressed despite himself. "Clever little lion," Tormund Giantsbane said. "You make us police ourselves." Tyrion Lannister smiled thinly. "Self-policing is the only policing that lasts," Tyrion Lannister said. "Ask any king." Jon Snow's mouth twitched. "Barely." "Hostages," Jon Snow said, voice firm. "Children of chiefs. Not to harm. To ensure faith." A low growl rose from the wildlings. Not a sound, but a feeling. The wildling woman's hand went to her knife. Tormund Giantsbane lifted a palm, quieting them. "Hostages," Tormund Giantsbane said slowly. "I don't like that word." "Neither do I," Tyrion Lannister said, and meant it. "Call them wards. Call them guests. Call them what you like. Winter doesn't care what word you use. Winter cares that you don't kill each other while the dead gather." The wildling chiefs muttered among themselves. Jaime Lannister watched them the way he watched men on a field before a charge, listening for the moment a line would break. Tormund Giantsbane leaned forward, eyes glittering. "And what do we get? Besides land that's been empty so long the ghosts have squatters' rights?" "Trade," Tyrion Lannister said. "You have furs, mammoth bone, amber from the frozen shore, things men south will pay for. We have grain when we can get it, iron, salt. We build a market at the wall's base watched by both sides. Coin is not your way, but you understand barter." Tormund Giantsbane's grin returned, broader now. "He talks like a man who's been hungry," Tormund Giantsbane said. "He knows hunger is louder than pride." Jon Snow's gaze stayed on Tormund Giantsbane. "And you swear," Jon Snow said, "no more war against the wall. Not while I command it." Tormund Giantsbane's eyes softened a fraction, the mountain's grin turning almost sincere. "You saved our people," Tormund Giantsbane said. "You opened a gate when other crows would have shut it and let us die. I don't love you, Jon Snow, but I'll follow you while the dead are coming. After, we'll see." "After," Jon Snow echoed, and the word held the weight of a future none of them could afford to imagine too closely. A black brother shouted from the crowd, voice cracking. "Traitors! You bring them in to rape our women and burn our homes." The hall surged. Wildlings snarled, black brothers shoved, torches flared. Jaime Lannister moved without thinking, stepping between the groups, golden hand raised, flesh hand open. His stance was not threatening, but it commanded space. "Enough!" Jaime Lannister barked, and the roar cut through the hall like a blade. Men froze, surprised by being ordered by the Kingslayer in black. Jaime Lannister's gaze swept the room. "If you want to fight," Jaime Lannister said, voice hard, "go beyond the wall. Fight the enemy that doesn't care what name you curse. If you spill blood here, you make the dead's work easier." Silence fell in uneven pieces. Jon Snow looked at Jaime Lannister for a heartbeat, then nodded once. "We sign," Jon Snow said. Tormund Giantsbane reached for a charcoal stick, scrawled his mark like a cut across parchment. Jon Snow did the same. The agreement was not pretty. It was not sure. But it existed, and existence was more than most men got from winter. As the hall began to empty, Tyrion Lannister rolled up the parchment, fingers stiff. Jaime Lannister leaned close, voice low. That went better than I expected, Jaime Lannister murmured. Tyrion Lannister's smile was tired. That's because you haven't seen it go wrong yet, Tyrion Lannister said. Outside, the wind howled along the wall, as if laughing at their ink. Melisandre's room was too warm. That was Tyrion Lannister's first thought as the door shut behind them, sealing out the walls' honest cold. The air here was thick with incense and heat, making Tyrion Lannister's skin prickle beneath wool. Braziers burned with a steady hunger, flames licking at iron like tongues. Shadows moved where they should not, stretching and shrinking as if the fire breathed. Melisandre stood by a basin of coals, red gown pooled around her feet like spilled wine. Her hair glowed in firelight, and her eyes, too bright, too knowing, fixed on Tyrion Lannister with the calm of someone who believed she had already seen his death. Jaime Lannister lingered near the door, posture rigid. Tyrion Lannister could feel Jaime Lannister's discomfort like a draft. The Kingslayer did not like rooms where power was invisible. "You asked for us," Tyrion Lannister said, and made it a statement so it would not sound like a question. Melisandre's lips curved. "I asked for you," Melisandre said, eyes flicking to Jaime Lannister's golden hand. "And for what follows you." Tyrion Lannister glanced at Jaime Lannister, then back. "What follows me is usually trouble," Tyrion Lannister said, "and occasionally wine. It's been a lean season for both." Melisandre's smile did not change. "Lean seasons end," Melisandre said. "Then the world burns." Tyrion Lannister's brows lifted. "That's cheerful," Tyrion Lannister said. Melisandre stepped closer, red sleeves trailing. "You mock because you are afraid," Melisandre said softly. "Of course I'm afraid," Tyrion Lannister said. "Fear is sensible. It keeps me from trusting women who talk about burning the world." A faint sound drifted through a curtain. Bells, distant and childish. Patch-faced bells, Tyrion Lannister realized. The fool's constant jingle like a warning no one wanted to understand. The sound made the hair on Tyrion Lannister's arms rise. Melisandre's gaze sharpened on Tyrion Lannister. "You were born under a bad sign," Melisandre said. "A twisted thing made to suffer. Men called you monster. Men called you curse. Yet you live. Spite is a strong medicine," Tyrion Lannister said. Melisandre's eyes slid past him to Jaime Lannister. "And you," Melisandre said, "a man with a hand of gold. A man who burned a king to save a city. A man who broke his vows and took new ones beneath a bleeding tree." Jaime Lannister's jaw tightened. "I didn't burn anyone," Jaime Lannister said. Melisandre's smile deepened slightly. "Not with fire," Melisandre agreed. "Yet." Tyrion Lannister felt Jaime Lannister's tension spike, like a bowstring pulled too far. Tyrion Lannister stepped in before Jaime Lannister could snap. "What do you want?" Tyrion Lannister asked bluntly. "If this is a sermon, I prefer my gods drunk and forgiving." Melisandre turned to the coals. "I want you to understand," Melisandre said. She lifted a piece of obsidian from a cloth, black glass, sharp-edged, catching firelight with a cold GL. Dragonglass. Tyrion Lannister had seen it once in a maester's collection, a curiosity. Here, in Melisandre's fingers, it looked like a tooth. "Fire and ice," Melisandre murmured. "Both can kill, both can cleanse." Tyrion Lannister's eyes narrowed. "Dragonglass," Tyrion Lannister said. Melisandre looked pleased. "You know its name," Melisandre said. "I know many names," Tyrion Lannister said. "Names aren't as useful as truth. Does it kill the dead?" Melisandre held the black glass closer to the flame. "It kills what rides the dead," Melisandre said, and her voice was almost tender. "The cold heart that commands, the darkness that remembers." Jaime Lannister's gaze fixed on the obsidian, wary. "How do you know?" Jaime Lannister asked. Melisandre's eyes lifted, reflecting flame. "I see," Melisandre said. "In fire." Tyrion Lannister forced a laugh that sounded thin in the heat. "Fire is a poor historian," Tyrion Lannister said. It remembers only what it consumes. Melisandre stepped close enough that Tyrion Lannister could smell her perfume, spice and smoke. "The Lord of Light shows me a wall of ice," Melisandre whispered, "and a shadow beyond it, and a man with a golden hand standing at the hinge of fate." Jaime Lannister's face went harder. "I'm no savior," Jaime Lannister said. Melisandre's gaze flicked to Tyrion Lannister then, sharp as a needle. "Saviors are not chosen because they want the burden," Melisandre said. "They are chosen because they can bear it." Tyrion Lannister's smile faded. "If your god chooses burdens," Tyrion Lannister said quietly, "he has very poor manners." Melisandre's expression did not soften. "The dead will test you," Melisandre said. "They will test your pride and your guilt and your love. When they come, you will find what you truly are." "And if we fail?" Jaime Lannister asked, voice rough. Melisandre looked back to the flame. "Then the world becomes night," Melisandre said, simple as that. The words settled in the room like ash. When they left Melisandre's heat and stepped back into Castle Black's cold corridors, Tyrion Lannister drew a deep breath as if the cold could scrub prophecy from his skin. Jaime Lannister walked beside him, shoulders tense. "She enjoys fear," Tyrion Lannister murmured. "She believes," Jaime Lannister said, and the word held an edge. "That's worse." Tyrion Lannister glanced at Jaime Lannister's golden hand, caught a faint glint of firelight still clinging to it. "Dragonglass," Tyrion Lannister said softly. "If she's right about that, then we need more than we have," Jaime Lannister finished. The wall groaned above them, settling. Far beyond it, the dark waited. Tyrion Lannister found he could not laugh it off anymore. Stannis Baratheon's war room felt like an iron box. The walls were bare stone. A single table dominated the space, heavy with maps weighted by daggers. Candlelight made everything look severe. Even the air felt judged. Stannis Baratheon stood over the table like a man carved from law. Ser Justin Massey lingered nearby, smooth and uncertain, eyes flicking between the king and the newcomers. Richard Horpe, hard-faced, scarred, the kind of man whose loyalty looked like violence, watched Jaime Lannister with undisguised dislike. Queen Celis Baratheon sat rigid in a chair, thin mouth pinched as if she'd tasted something foul and could not spit it out. Princess Shireen Baratheon sat beside her, small hands holding a book, eyes darting nervously. Patchface lurked near the wall, bells faint, a shadow with a fool's grin. Tyrion Lannister felt every gaze land on him like stones. In King's Landing, he had been stared at as spectacle. Here he was stared at as contamination. Stannis Baratheon did not offer greeting. "Tyrion Lannister," Stannis Baratheon said, and the name sounded like an indictment. "You should be in chains." "I've been in chains," Tyrion Lannister said. They chafed. Stannis Baratheon's eyes hardened. "You killed your king," Stannis Baratheon said. "I was convicted of killing my king," Tyrion Lannister corrected. "It's an important distinction. Kings have a habit of dying around ambitious people." Ser Justin Massey made a small, nervous sound. Richard Horpe's hand twitched toward his sword. Stannis Baratheon's gaze flicked to Jaime Lannister. "And you," Stannis Baratheon said, "Oathbreaker, Kingslayer, are you here to murder me as well?" Jaime Lannister met Stannis Baratheon's stare without flinching. "No," Jaime Lannister said. "I'm here because the wall is where wars end." Stannis Baratheon's mouth curled. "Wars don't end," Stannis Baratheon said. "They change names." Tyrion Lannister stepped closer to the table, eyes on the maps. He recognized the marks: Winterfell, Deepwood Motte, the crook of the white knife. Stannis Baratheon's war was laid out in ink. "You march on Winterfell," Tyrion Lannister said. Stannis Baratheon's gaze snapped to Tyrion Lannister. "I do," Stannis Baratheon said. "And I take it." Tyrion Lannister nodded slowly. "Then you'll need food," Tyrion Lannister said. Stannis Baratheon's eyes narrowed. "I have food," Stannis Baratheon said, as if the statement alone could make it true. "You have some," Tyrion Lannister said. You have less than you think. Winter eats armies faster than battle does. The Boltons won't need to defeat you if the cold does it for them. Richard Horp took a step forward. The imp lectures the king on war, Richard Horp snarled. Tyrion Lannister looked at Richard Horp, expression calm. The imp lectures the king on arithmetic, Tyrion Lannister said. War is arithmetic with screaming. Stannis Baratheon's jaw flexed. You presume much, Stannis Baratheon said. I presume hung. Tyrion Lannister said. Tyrion Lannister tapped the map near White Harbor. This is your lifeline whether you like the Manderleys or not. Grain and salt fish, wagons, horses. You can't take Winterfell on justice alone. Queen Celis Baratheon's voice cut in sharp. He speaks as if he belongs here, Queen Celis Baratheon said, eyes bright with disdain. A Lannister, a monster. Princess Shireen Baratheon's fingers tightened on her book. Patchface swayed slightly, bells whispering. Tyrion Lannister turned to Queen Celis Baratheon with a small, precise bow. Your Grace, Tyrion Lannister said. Monsters are very useful in winter. We don't mind ugly work. Queen Celis Baratheon's mouth tightened further. Stannis Baratheon did not look at his queen. His eyes stayed on Tyrion Lannister like a blade weighing a cut. You offer counsel, Stannis Baratheon said. Why? Tyrion Lannister did not answer with jest. He thought of the corpse on the sled, of Ghost's growl, of Melisandre's black glass in flame. He thought of the way the wall had felt like a judgment. Because if the wall falls, Tyrion Lannister said quietly, your war for Winterfell becomes irrelevant. All thrones become irrelevant. The dead don't kneel. Silence settled, heavy. Stannis Baratheon's eyes did not soften, but something in his posture shifted. A fraction, as if the word dead had weight even for a man who believed in law more than fear. Jon Snow speaks of dead men, Stannis Baratheon said. He speaks of monsters in the cold. And you think him fanciful? Tyrion Lannister asked. Stannis Baratheon's mouth tightened. I think Jon Snow believes, Stannis Baratheon said. And belief can make men useful. Jaime Lannister spoke, voice low, controlled. I've seen a city nearly burn, Jaime Lannister said. I've seen what happens when men ignore warnings because they don't like the messenger. Richard Horp's eyes flashed. You compare yourself to... Jaime Lannister's gaze cut Richard Horp off, sharp as steel. I compare winter to fire, Jaime Lannister said. Both kill. Both don't care what name you shout at them. Stannis Baratheon stared at Jaime Lannister for a long moment. You took the vows, Stannis Baratheon said finally, as if it were a fact he still disliked. I did, Jaime Lannister said. Then you are Jon Snow's problem, Stannis Baratheon said, voice cold. Not mine, but if your counsel helps me take Winterfell, I will use it. Tyrion Lannister inclined his head. As you should, Tyrion Lannister said. Princess Shireen Baratheon looked up from her book then, eyes cautious. What book is that? Tyrion Lannister asked, surprising himself. Princess Shireen Baratheon hesitated, then held it up slightly. A history, Princess Shireen Baratheon said. About dragons. Tyrion Lannister felt something twist in his chest. An odd tenderness, unwanted. Dragons, Tyrion Lannister murmured. Careful. Dragons have a way of biting people who stare too long. Prink. Shireen Baratheon's mouth twitched faintly, not quite a smile. Queen Celis Baratheon's glare sharpened, as if Tyrion Lannister's gentleness offended her more than his existence. Patchface began to hum under his breath, a tuneless sound. Bells whispered. Under the sea, Patchface murmured. Smoke rises, and the dead dance. Tyrion Lannister's skin prickled. Stannis Baratheon barked, silence, and Patchface humming faltered, then resumed softer. Stannis Baratheon turned back to the map. Go, Stannis Baratheon said to Tyrion Lannister and Jaime Lannister, and tell Jon Snow I want beef by tomorrow. Tyrion Lannister smiled thinly. Tell Stannis Baratheon, Tyrion Lannister said, that Winter wants him dead by tomorrow. I'll see which demand is easier to satisfy. Ser Justin Massey sucked in a breath. Richard Horp looked ready to strike. Stannis Baratheon's eyes narrowed. Then, unexpectedly, his mouth twitched, the smallest sign of grim amusement, quickly buried. Tyrion Lannister bowed and turned. Jaime Lannister followed, silent. As they left, Tyrion Lannister heard Princess Shireen Baratheon's book close softly. He did not look back, but he could not shake the sense that in that room, with its iron walls and its burning candles, the war for the living was being waged with maps while the true war crept closer in silence. The dead man moved at dusk, when Castle Black's shadows grew long and men's attention drifted toward bowls of stew and brief warmth. Tyrion Lannister was in the corridor outside the ice tunnel when the first scream cut through the stone like an axe. He ran without thinking. Jaime Lannister ran too, faster despite his awkward balance, boots striking ice. The corridor narrowed, funneled men toward the mouth of the tunnel. Torches flared as brothers poured in, faces pale. Inside, the air was colder, the kind of cold that bit at the lungs. The ice tunnel glowed faintly blue in torchlight, as if the wall itself bled cold light. The sled's corpse had been dragged onto a stone slab. It lay there beneath a stiff cloak, a shape that should have stayed still. It did not. The cloak jerked. A hand shot out, fingers clawing, blue-black and strong. The corpse sat up with a motion too sudden for a dead spine, eyes opening, milk-pale, empty, yet somehow intent. A sound came from its throat, not a breath, not a word, a wet rasp that made Tyrion Lannister's stomach turn. A black brother closest to it froze, as if disbelief had rooted him. The corpse lunged, hands closing on the man's throat. Jon Snow burst into the tunnel, long claw drawn, Valyrian steel catching torchlight with a dark shimmer. Ghost was not with him, too large for the crush of bodies, but Jon Snow moved like a man who had fought worse than this in darkness. Back! Jon Snow shouted. The brother being strangled made a choking sound. Jon Snow swung Longclaw, blade biting through dead flesh with a crunch. The corpse did not fall as a living man would. It jerked, staggered, still reaching, still hungry. Men shouted. One tried to grab the corpse's arm. The corpse turned and sank teeth into the man's wrist. Blood sprayed hot against ice. Panic surged, thick as smoke. Bowen Marsh stumbled backward, eyes wide, mouth open in a soundless shape. Stannis Baratheon's soldiers pushed in behind the watch, steel flashing, prayers spilling from lips. Tyrion Lannister grabbed a torch from a wall bracket, the flame flaring as if pleased to be needed. Fire! Tyrion Lannister shouted. Fire, you idiots! Jaime Lannister moved, one clean step into chaos. Jaime Lannister did not draw a sword. Jaime Lannister used his body. He slammed shoulder first into the corpse, knocking it away from the bitten man. The dead thing turned, hands clawing for Jaime Lannister's face. Jaime Lannister caught its wrist with his golden hand. Metal clamped down on dead flesh. The corpse jerked, surprisingly strong, and for a moment Jaime Lannister's stance buckled. Jaime Lannister's left hand punched forward, not with a blade but with the blunt heel of his palm, striking the corpse's jaw. Teeth snapped shut on air. The corpse clawed at Jaime Lannister's throat. Jaime Lannister twisted, taking the scrape on his shoulder instead. He grunted, breath fogging. Tyrion Lannister thrust the torch forward. Flame licked at the corpse's cloak. The cloth caught fast, dry with frost. Fire climbed, bright and hungry. The corpse screamed, not like a man, but like ice cracking on a river, flailed, hands spasming. The smell hit Tyrion Lannister a heartbeat later. Burning hair, burning meat, something older beneath, a stench like a cellar full of rot. The dead thing stumbled into a brother, and both fell. Jon Snow yanked the living man away as the fire spread. Stannis Baratheon's men cursed, backing up, one shouting a prayer to Lawler. Someone hurled another torch, and flame leapt, lighting the tunnel like a furnace in a grave. The corpse thrashed until it could not, collapsed, limbs twitching, then stilled. Fire ate what was left until only blackened bone and melted flesh remained, steaming. Silence followed, broken by coughs and the wet sound of men swallowing fear. Jon Snow stood over the charred remains, Longclaw dripping dark. His face was set, but Tyrion Lannister saw the flicker in his eyes. A grim certainty hardening. This was not rumor now, not story. This was in their tunnels, in their stone, beneath the wall itself. A bitten brother moaned, clutching his wrist. Blood seeped between his fingers. "It bit me," the man whispered, voice trembling. "It." Jon Snow grabbed a nearby brother's knife and looked at the bitten man without cruelty, only with terrible necessity. "Hold him," Jon Snow ordered. The bitten man's eyes widened. "No," the man croaked. "Please." Jaime Lannister stepped close, voice low. "Better pain now," Jaime Lannister said. "Then your teeth in your brother's throat later." The men holding the bitten brother tightened their grip. The bitten man sobbed. Jon Snow raised the knife. Tyrion Lannister turned away before he saw the cut. He heard the scream anyway, echoing off ice. When it was done, when the stump was wrapped and the man was carried out, Tyrion Lannister looked back at the blackened bones. Fire had won, but only barely, and only because someone had remembered it in time. Bowen Marsh stood near the tunnel mouth, face pale, eyes wide with a fear that looked close to hatred. "This is your doing?" Bowen Marsh whispered, not to anyone in particular, but the accusation hung in the air like smoke. "Bringing them through. Bringing." Jon Snow's voice cut through, sharp as a snap of ice. "This is the enemy," Jon Snow said. "Not wildlings, not kings. This." Stannis Baratheon's soldiers stood rigid, shaken. One crossed himself awkwardly, then remembered his god and muttered a different prayer. Jaime Lannister stared down at his golden hand. Bits of charred flesh clung to the metal. Jaime Lannister flexed his fingers, as if trying to shake off the sensation of dead strength. Tyrion Lannister held the torch upright, flame steady. The warmth on his face felt like salvation and threat both. Jon Snow looked at Tyrion Lannister, eyes dark. "You were right," Jon Snow said. Tyrion Lannister's mouth was dry. "About fire?" Tyrion Lannister asked. "About plans," Jon Snow said. "We don't have the luxury of improvising when the dead come through our doors." Tyrion Lannister felt the weight of that settle on him, heavier than any chain. The wall did not care who he had been. The dead did not care either. But men cared. Men panicked. Men broke. And men could be guided, if the guidance came before the breaking. By the time the smell of burnt death faded from the corridors, Jon Snow had already begun turning fear into work. The Shieldhall became a war room, torches replaced by candles to save oil, benches dragged into a rough circle. Men filed in with stiff faces, carrying the fatigue of long years and the new terror of the corpse that had tried to eat them in their own tunnel. Jon Snow stood at the center table with a map spread wide. Tyrion Lannister stood beside him, quill in hand. Jaime Lannister stood on the other side, golden hand resting on the table edge, his flesh hand pointing at places like a commander tracing lines of attack. Othel Yarwyck jabbed a thick finger at the map. "Night Fort," Othel Yarwyck grunted. "Oakenshield, Greyguard, dead places, broken roofs, no stores. Places men can stand," Jaime Lannister said. "Places that make the wall longer than one gate." Bowen Marsh held a list of numbers so tightly the parchment crinkled. "With what men?" Bowen Marsh demanded. "We barely have enough to man Castle Black and feed ourselves." Tyrion Lannister tapped the ledger. "With wildlings," Tyrion Lannister said. A mutter ran through the hall like a cold draft. Bowen Marsh's face reddened. "You would arm them?" Bowen Marsh snapped. Tormund Giantsbane, sitting with his arms crossed, grinned. "We're already armed," Tormund Giantsbane said. "You can't unarm a man's hands." Jon Snow's voice was steady. "We can't hold the wall with ghosts," Jon Snow said. "The free folk want south. We need men." We make it work. Tyrion Lannister lifted the quill. Then we structure it, Tyrion Lannister said. Not chaos, not trust. Terms. Bowen Marsh's eyes narrowed. Terms won't stop knives, Bowen Marsh said. Terms don't stop knives, Tyrion Lannister agreed. They tell you whose knife to expect and when. That's an improvement. Jon Snow looked at Tyrion Lannister. Speak, Jon Snow said. Tyrion Lannister took a breath, feeling the hall watching. He was used to rooms watching him. He was not used to rooms watching him because they needed him. We divide the wall into sectors, Tyrion Lannister said. Castle Black remains the heart, because it holds the bulk of stores and the command. Eastwatch and the Shadow Tower already stand, but we reinforce them. We reopen one additional castle at minimum, 2 if we can, placing small garrisons with signal fires. Othel Yarwick grunted approval, already seeing the work. Beacons, Othel Yarwick said. We can rig iron braziers. Oil, pitch. Jaime Lannister nodded. And we drill, Jaime Lannister said. Not as if men will duel. As if men will stand in a shield wall while the dead press until arms go numb. Spear lines, fire lines, rotations, relief. Tormund Giantsbane's grin faded into something more serious. Fire lines, Tormund Giantsbane repeated. Aye, fire scares them. It kills them, Jon Snow said. Sometimes, Tyrion Lannister added quietly, and dragonglass. The word drew stares. Bowen Marsh blinked. Othel Yarwick frowned. Tormund Giantsbane spat. Jon Snow's gaze met Tyrion Lannister's. Melisandre spoke to you, Jon Snow said, not a question. She spoke, Tyrion Lannister said. She held a piece of it in her hand. Obsidian, dragonglass. If it truly wounds what commands the dead, we need more. A great deal more. Othel Yarwick scratched his beard. Obsidian, Othel Yarwick said. We found pieces north. Arrowheads. Old. Dragonstone, Tyrion Lannister said. The island. Volcanic glass. Stannis Baratheon held it for years. If the deposits are real. Jon Snow's face tightened. We don't have ships to mine Dragonstone, Jon Snow said. And Stannis Baratheon won't hear of diverting men from Winterfell. Then we don't ask him for men, Tyrion Lannister said. We ask him for stone. We ask him as an ally against the dead, not as a king granting favor. Bowen Marsh snorted. Stannis Baratheon grants nothing, Bowen Marsh muttered. He takes. Jaime Lannister's gaze moved over the map, steady and cold. Then we speak in terms Stannis Baratheon understands, Jaime Lannister said. Duty, necessity, the enemy of his enemy. Jon Snow nodded once. Sharp. We'll try, Jon Snow said. Tyrion Lannister continued, pushing the plan forward like a cart through snow. We also plan for failure, Tyrion Lannister said. Not because we want it, but because winter doesn't care about our wants. If a section of the wall is breached, if a gate is taken, we need fallback points, villages in the gift, Molestown, evacuation routes. Not everyone can be saved, but more can be saved if we decide how before we're screaming. Men shifted uneasily. Planning for failure sounded like inviting it. Jaime Lannister spoke into that discomfort, voice low and firm. Every soldier who pretends he can't lose is already dead, Jaime Lannister said. He just doesn't know it yet. Tormund Giantsbane studied Jaime Lannister for a long moment, then nodded slowly. The one-handed lion speaks truth, Tormund Giantsbane said. Ugly truth, but truth. Jon Snow looked around the circle. This is not a southern war, Jon Snow said, voice carrying. This is not a question of crowns. This is the fight for Dawn. If you can't set aside old hatred, then you're choosing death. For yourself, and for the men beside you. Silence settled. In the quiet, Tyrion Lannister heard the walls' faint groan above, ice shifting in the cold like a giant turning in its sleep. Bowen Marsh's mouth tightened, but he did not argue again. Othel Yarwick nodded, already thinking of timber and nails. Some black brothers looked sick, some determined. Fear had not vanished, but it had been given a shape that could be worked against. Jon Snow leaned closer to Tyrion Lannister and Jaime Lannister, voice dropping so only they could hear. "If this fails," Jon Snow said, "they'll blame me." Tyrion Lannister met Jon Snow's eyes. "They'll blame you even if it succeeds," Tyrion Lannister said softly. "Tease what men do. Leaders exist to be blamed." Jaime Lannister's gaze hardened. "Then let them blame," Jaime Lannister said, "and live." Jon Snow exhaled once, a small fog. Then Jon Snow straightened and began assigning tasks. Men to watch the gates, men to gather pitch, men to repair the winch cages, men to inventory firewood. Orders turned panic into motion. Tyrion Lannister wrote until his fingers cramped, ink smearing where cold stiffened it. Jaime Lannister spoke with Iron Emmett and Othel Yarwick about drills and positions. Tormund Giantsbane listened, surprising Tyrion Lannister with his patience when the subject was survival. When the meeting finally broke, men filed out into the cold with new burdens and new purpose. Tyrion Lannister remained at the table, staring down at the map. The wall was long. Winter was longer. The dead, if Jon Snow was right, were endless. Tyrion Lannister smiled faintly, a grim thing. At least, Tyrion Lannister thought, endless problems meant endless opportunities to prove people wrong. The Raven arrived after midnight, when even Castle Black's restless noises softened into a tired hush. Tyrion Lannister was still awake, because sleep had learned to avoid him. He sat in the small room Jon Snow had given them, quill in hand, writing numbers by candle stub until the flame bent low and threatened to drown in its own wax. A knock came, hard, urgent. Jaime Lannister was already on his feet before Tyrion Lannister could speak. Jaime Lannister opened the door to find Clyda standing there, hood up, breath steaming, a scroll clutched in his hand like a wound. "Lord Commander," Clyda said to Jaime Lannister out of habit, then corrected himself awkwardly. "Jon Snow, he needs you both. Now." Tyrion Lannister's stomach tightened. He shoved his papers aside and followed, cloak pulled close. The Raven room was cramped, filled with cages and feathers and the sharp smell of bird droppings. Ravens shifted and muttered in the dark, eyes bright in lantern light. Jon Snow stood near the table, the new scroll open in his hands. His face was carved hard, lips tight. Ghost was not there. Ghost never came into the Raven room. Perhaps even direwolves disliked the smell of messages. Clydas hovered near the door like a man afraid of being blamed for the words he delivered. Jon Snow looked up as Tyrion Lannister and Jaime Lannister entered. "Eastwatch," Jon Snow said, voice low. Tyrion Lannister stepped closer and read over Jon Snow's shoulder. The letter was Cotter Pike's hand, blunt, jagged, impatient. The words came like hammer blows. Hardhome crowded with thousands, starving, sick, fighting among themselves, ships lost, dead rising in the night, men screaming and then joining the screams. There were details that made Tyrion Lannister's throat tighten. Things in the woods, cold that bites through steel, can't hold. Tyrion Lannister looked up. "Hardhome," Tyrion Lannister whispered. He had heard the name in taverns, in sailors' tales. Ruins on a haunted shore, a place cursed since before Aegon's dragons. Stories, he had thought. Now it was a ledger entry in blood. Jon Snow's eyes were dark. "There are people there," Jon Snow said. "Free folk, women, children. If we leave them," Jon Snow's jaw clenched. "If we leave them, they die, and then they don't stay dead." Jaime Lannister's golden hand flexed softly. "How far?" Jaime Lannister asked. "By sea from Eastwatch," Jon Snow said. "If the sea is kind." "The sea is never kind," Tyrion Lannister murmured, remembering the storm. Tyrion Lannister forced his mind into motion. "How many ships does Cotter Pike have?" Tyrion Lannister asked. "Not enough," Jon Snow said. "And the ones he has are battered. Storms took some, ice took others." Tyrion Lannister tapped the parchment lightly. "Then we don't send courage," Tyrion Lannister said. "We send structure. We triage. We set rules. Load women and children first. Leave anything that weighs too much. Burn what must be burned so it can't be used ag. Ainstus. Clydas swallowed. Burn? Clydas whispered. Jaime Lannister's gaze met Tyrion Lannister's, understanding grim. Burn the dead, Jaime Lannister said. Tyrion Lannister nodded once. And if we can't burn them all, Tyrion Lannister said softly, we burn what we can and we sail before we become more fuel. Jon Snow stared at Tyrion Lannister for a long moment. You speak of leaving people, Jon Snow said, voice tight. I speak of saving some, Tyrion Lannister replied. Saving none is the other option. Jon Snow's eyes flicked away, jaw working. Tyrion Lannister saw the war inside him. The honorable boy raised by Eddard Stark. The commander forced to choose who lived and who died by numbers instead of names. Jaime Lannister stepped forward. I'll go, Jaime Lannister said. Jon Snow's head snapped up. You can't, Jon Snow said immediately. You're one-handed, Jaime Lannister said, and there was no self-pity in it, only fact. I can still command. I can still keep men from panicking. Cotter Pike is hard, but even hard men break when the dead come. Tyrion Lannister felt a pulse of surprise. Jaime Lannister offering himself not as a sword but as a steady hand, golden or not, was a different sort of courage than Tyrion Lannister was used to seeing in his brother. Jon Snow's gaze held Jaime Lannister's. If you go, Jon Snow said slowly, and you die, then I die doing something that matters, Jaime Lannister said. Tyrion Lannister let out a slow breath. And if Jaime Lannister goes, Tyrion Lannister said, someone should go who can keep accounts, write orders, and lie convincingly when fear is louder than reason. Jon Snow stared. You want to go too, Jon Snow said. Tyrion Lannister shrugged, as if it were a minor inconvenience. If Hardhome is a wound, we should not let it fester, Tyrion Lannister said. Besides, I've already fled one court. I might as well flee the world's edge too. Clydas looked as if he might faint. Lord Commander, Clydas said to Jon Snow, voice trembling. Sending brothers. Jon Snow's eyes did not soften. We send brothers, Jon Snow said, or we send corpses later. Jon Snow folded Cotter Pike's letter carefully, as if the act could make the words less sharp. At dawn, Jon Snow said, voice firm. We plan. We count. We choose men who won't break. We send what we can. The raven fluttered in its cage, wings beating softly against bars. Outside the small window, the wall loomed under moonlight, pale and silent, as if it had always known what the letter said and had been waiting for men to catch up. Tyrion Lannister looked at the wall and felt a strange clarity settle in him. The South had been a game of lies and pride, a slaughter wrapped in silk. Here the truth was blunt. If they did nothing, winter would take everything. If they acted, winter might take less. Jaime Lannister stood beside him, face hard, eyes steady. Jon Snow stood across from them, the weight of command press. Ing down like the wall itself. In the Raven Room's cramped air, with feathers and ink and cold breath, the beginnings of Jon Snow's war plan shifted from idea to necessity. And Tyrion Lannister realized that, for the first time in his life, the fight ahead had nothing to do with proving himself to a father, a sister, a court. It had to do with keeping the sun from going out.